Welcome to Paperweights, the podcast where two self-proclaimed gym rats and shooting enthusiasts delve into the world of literature with a sprinkle of humor. Although their biceps could crush a walnut, don't let that intimidate you. They also have a nerdy side. Mike and Brandon have a voracious appetite for reading, particularly in the fantasy genre, and they want to share their passion with you. So grab your protein shake and your favorite novel and join us for a humorous and insightful journey into the world of books with Paperweights.
Welcome back to another episode of the Paperweights. I'm your host, Brandon.
And Justin.
Justin, welcome back.
Yeah, back for another one.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. This week's reading, it's a lot, but
yeah,
I think it's fun. I enjoyed reading it. We get to we meet Dalinar and Adolin.
Yeah, two of my favorites.
Yeah, they're fun. Dalinar is just a badass. So
Yeah,
I love the way he describes the thrill. We'll get into that as well. So, but yeah, first things first. We are sponsored by Mudcat Whiskers, and you can visit them at their website, www.mudcatwhiskers.com. They sell a variety of beard care products and soy candles with a wood burning wick that crackles when you burn it. So you got a little sound with it and a scent. So you can head over to their website, use code Paperweights at checkout, and you will save yourself, I think it's 15% or something like that. So it's a decent discount. And yeah. So all right, let's go ahead and dive in because we got a bunch to get through.
yeah.
Hopefully we it's not like a 5 or 6 hour long podcast, but hey, we don't know yet how long it's going to be. So listeners, I hope you stick around for the ride. And don't forget, I usually say this at the end, but click those like buttons, share it with people, share it on your socials if you want. It helps get this podcast out into the realm of people that would enjoy it, people like you that are listening to it. Unless you're just like associated with Justin or I, and you're just listening to it because you want to support us and you really have no clue what the hell we're talking about. But
if you're doing that, you should still give it a like.
yes, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right. So part 2 of The Way of Kings, titled The Illuminating Storms. So we'll start with the epigraphs on this one. So we don't know. It's not stated in the epigraphs who the author is or who it's being written to, but it is a letter being written from one person to an old friend. We get the sense that they no longer talk to each other. Even the author states that you don't agree with my mission, but it appears to be a letter that deals with the Cosmere a lot more than just the Way of Kings or the Stormlight Archives. So we're starting to get a whole lot more like, hey, whoever the author is, they're on Roshar right now, and they're writing to this person saying, hey, look, Odium is on Roshar, and he's a big problem. He was already on some other planet. He splintered some other people, and then he mentions other names of assumingly powerful people. But we also see in this letter, in these epigraphs, that there are immortals in the Cosmere. The author is an immortal. The person he's writing to is immortal, and these I think he mentions them. No, he doesn't call them by what they are, but like the names of the people that he mentions are Race, Aona, Sky, AT, which AT and sorry, I'm reading, looking over this. AT, from Mistborn. Yes. Um, yeah, AT is a character that shows up in Mistborn.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
I'll tell you off air, just so people that
Cool.
haven't read Mistborn, um, they don't know the specifics of it, but yeah, you've met AT. So yeah, basically,
All right.
and he drops the name, the 17th Shard. And so whoever he's writing to is friends with people in the 17th Shard, and they're from off-world, so they're not originally from Roshar.
Yeah.
So this is pretty cool. Um,
Yeah. I'll say this. I don't care that much right now about the larger Cosmere stuff. It might be cool, but from what I remember, I was able to read at least the first three books, and it not really matter that much. So like it's cool, but I don't know. Like I have a weird feeling about it. It's kind of like the Marvel movies, or like most of the really good ones. You don't need to know anything about the rest of the Marvel stuff. And then like you have like Endgame and stuff, which it really matters and it's really cool. But like for like the main entries in the things, they'll be like, oh, this guy showed up. And it's like, oh, you haven't seen Doctor Strange. You still get the book. So like as long as that still happens, I'm cool with it. But when it gets really bad, it's like, oh, you have to watch 3 Disney Plus shows to understand what the hell is going on. That's when it's going to be bad. So I just hope, as long as you're able to still read Stormlight and not be like lost, you might lose a couple of like cameos or ooh, this is cool stuff, and like I still get the sense of like, oh, it's like larger stuff that I don't really understand, and it's still cool, but it's not like I'm super lost or like as long as I don't feel like you need to do homework to enjoy the book, I think it's cool that it's shared. But if I feel like it could be too much and like actually be a detriment to the series.
no, I agree. And I've read all four of the novels in Stormlight Archives, and I enjoyed them way more. I mean, I enjoyed them a whole lot, not way more, but I enjoyed them a whole lot. And I was able to follow along the story of Roshar in the Stormlight Archives without really understanding the Cosmere related stuff. Now, on this reread, um, there are things that are very obvious to me that were when I originally read it, it was just like, oh, okay, it's like a play. When I originally read it, it was like I had a placeholder for these things. Like, okay, I don't understand who these people are or what their motives are, but I know what they're doing. And I know their connection to their part in this story. But I don't know why. I don't know their backstory, so I don't know where they're coming from, but it doesn't hinder my understanding of the story.
Yeah. And like I think it's okay if it's like you have to read a main novel, but when it gets too much, it's like when you have to read the like novellas and like this one story that was only posted on the website, or, like if it's like oh, if you read Mistborn, you're gonna have some fun stuff, or you read Era 2 Mistborn, it's like okay, that's fine. I mean, Warbreaker and stuff, sure. But it's like once it gets too in the weeds, where it's like you have to read 15 novels to understand what's happening. I think that's a failure of the author to not like explain in the story what's going on, which I don't think it's happened in the first 3 books that I've read. But it's a worry that I have for future books.
So far, it has so far to me, there hasn't been a specific Cosmere novel that Sanderson has written where it could not stand on its own.
That's good.
Um, but
Yeah,
like I said, you will still miss a few things like the weight of something. but it's written in a way where you're curious about it and you can go back and go, okay, what was that about?
Yeah.
And go find about it. But um yeah, I mean, the analogy with the Marvel universe, it's like nobody's gonna go jump into Avengers um in game without watching other stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that stands by itself. That still stands by its well, I would say it still kind of stands by itself, but as a hey, all this other stuff we've been doing, it feeds just to this. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's like an extra thing. It's like a big thing.
Yeah, but I hope, see, like in game's an interesting thing, but like it's also kind of affected the Marvel universe where like you can't really watch like, but you can watch like Iron Man, the Iron Man movies, and you'll still get, or like Captain America movie. So like I liken the main series like Mistborn this to like Iron Man and Doctor Strange, where like you can still get them. It would be what I hope he does is if it's like a in-game event, it'll be its own series. And oh crap, it's people from Mistborn and like Roshar, like all mixed together. I think that should be its own series because then you'll be like, okay, I need to read like 15 books to understand this novel, and it'd be really cool, and it'd be a nice delineation. So I hope
I
it
have
does.
a feeling that's what's going to happen. I do not think the Stormlight Archives is going to be the conglomeration of the Cosmere,
Mm.
but I think it feels like it's one of the biggest players in it.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
I think he'll do it right because he seems like a really smart guy, and he's watched how Marvel struggle with its shared universe.
yeah, Sanderson's really smart. So.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll jump into
Yeah, just on the letters, they're really cool, and I do like, even if I don't really understand what's going on, does give you a sense of the larger world, kind of like the Prelude did. So I really like him, but
yeah, I had that same thought. I was like, I remembered you said that about the prelude. You're and I was like, this does give that same sense of, hey, there's something larger at play than the chapters we're reading.
yeah,
And so it kind of gives you, to me, it gives me a little more um like if I pay attention to it and piece it together, because like you could easily just go, all right, what the hell is this stuff? You know, if you didn't go back and try to connect the epigraphs and you just like read them and then read the chapter and then forgot what the previous epigraph was, you'd be very confused at the beginning of each of these chapters. But if you go back and you string them all together, you're like, okay, well, that's one big coherent thing. And it's easy to skip over that. But if you do piece them together, it gives you an extra drive to be like, okay, what's the big piece? What's the big bad? So kind of like in a D&D campaign, you know, you'll have these little modules that you'll play. I mean, you're our DM or one of our DMs, and you know, we have a big bad that we're working towards, but also each of these characters has you're creating these stories for these characters where their story comes to a big climax as well. And
yeah,
so all of the like in this case, these epigraphs, that's that big bad. And then each of the like the Mistborn, the Stormlight Archives, Warbreaker, each one of those is like, okay, here's the story of these characters. And then at some point, you know, maybe those characters don't make it to the big thing, but there's going to be aspects of that story that feed into the big bad, the overarching story. It's kind of how
yeah.
I view it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to the Dalinar and Adolin um point of view chapters. And we'll run through sequentially through theirs. and then we'll move on to Kaladin, and then I wrote preludes, but it's definitely interludes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, chapter 12 is Unity, and we are going to meet um, some new characters. We haven't met them before. We meet a lot of new characters actually. The main ones are all right. We've got Elokar, who's the new Alethi king, who's Gavilar's.
Yep, Gavilar's son.
Um, his shard plate. He's a full shard bearer. He painted his gold. We meet some of the high princes. Sadeas and Dalinar are both high princes. Sadeas's shard plate is red. Dalinar doesn't paint his shard plate. It's kind of a gray. Dalinar's son, Adolin, he paints the Kholin blue. We also meet Adolin's brother, Renarin. We meet Vema, who is another high prince, and he is not a shard bearer.
Yeah, the rest of the high princes besides Sadeas are pretty much just names.
Yeah,
which is kind of interesting. I guess there's already too many characters to really go into any more, but we really get the sense through these chapters that like Dalinar and Sadeas are like the two main political like powers in this society.
so kind of like the Starks and the Lannisters.
Kind of, yeah. And they kind of hate each other, so it makes sense.
Yeah, they were friends though, and we
Yeah.
learn more about them throughout these chapters as it goes.
Yeah.
So
But like the rest of them have like armies and stuff, but like they don't seem like that important. At least so far. Maybe they'll get more important, but it's interesting. But yeah, they're definitely the two powers in this war camp.
yeah, so the other big person we meet in this chapter is Wit, who's the king's. Um, he's the king's wit. He's described as more than a jester, but he's like a comedic voice or an aid to the king.
Yeah, he
Later on, I think it's hilarious that he is sitting outside of a feast and he's just insulting all of the nobility that come in.
yeah. I like that it's not a I think it's in these chapters. It's not a crime to kill a king's wit. You just lose everything.
Yeah.
So like you don't go to jail or get executed, but you lose all your money. So it's still a crime. I don't know why they say it like that. But
It's not a
capital punishment.
yeah, capital punishment worthy crime.
Yeah.
Even though if you lose all of your stuff, I don't know how that's not capital punishment. Like,
True.
I'm going to seize all of your assets. How is that not capital punishment? What the fuck am I supposed to do?
Yeah. But I like Wit, and you get the sense that he is not who he seems. There's something more.
Yeah. So let's see. This is this chapter they're going on a hunt and for a chasm fiend. We find out the hunts. So the majority of the Shattered Plains, and this connects back to Kaladin, and so it gives the reasoning of the bridge runs, and we see it from the nobility side, the light eye side, instead of like the grunts doing all the work. And so as they're going on this big hunt, we get all the king and the high princes and everything talking to each other, but they get word of the chasm fiend, the big chasm fiend, so they go across all of the plateaus to try to get to the chasm or the chasm fiend before the Parshendi do, and to kill it, open it up, and take a gem heart out of it, which is basically, we don't know exactly what it is, but it's infused with stormlight and they're huge. And so the one they actually capture from this chasm fiend is an emerald gem heart, and that's described as being bigger than the size of a man's head.
Yeah. Well, last week we saw Soulcaster, right?
Yeah, we
We-
learned about Soulcasters last week with Shallan and Yasna.
Yeah. Do you know why they need the gem hearts yet? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
for creating food and other things. So
yeah,
like all the they 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 use the soul casters. I mean they use the gem
gem
hearts
hearts. Yeah.
to power the Fabrials and soul casters to do magic stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of clearly a like kind of allegory to like oil, or like they moved in for vengeance. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like the like Iraq War or something where they moved into vengeance and like, oh, there's a lot of oil, and so yeah, so they kind of stayed around, and uh it's an interesting little historical parallel.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Even kind of the setting, the desert style setting fits in with it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
supposedly, like, there are people that view uh like Middle Eastern. I mean, it's not as first world as the United States, obviously. So like in Roshar, the Parshendi are seen as kind of barbaric and not up to speed as the Alethi are with technology and things. So there's that tracks there with the parallel as well. So
yeah.
yeah, so during the hunt, um, there are we learn about grand bows, which somebody wanted to call them shard bows, but they're not as magical as shard blades and plate. So somebody was like, no, we're not going to do that. But they're giant metal bows. Like instead of wood, they're metal. And didn't they you have to use gem hearts or
I don't think
stormlight to prevent them from breaking?
maybe.
But I think they're like 10 foot long or something.
Yeah, they're huge. They're basically giant anime bows that
Yes.
shoot like basically ballista bolts. They're really cool.
They're really cool. So they they're part of the uh, I guess non-shard bearers weapons to defeat chasm fiends and some of the armored creatures that we see in the Shadow
Yeah. So it
Plains.
seems like if you don't have a blade, but you have the armor, you use like bows or there's like we see later giant hammers that are really cool too.
Dalinar beat the shit out of his.
Yeah.
And you
Um,
can't really hold it. Like it takes multiple men to hold it if you're not wearing shard plate.
yeah, because they weigh so much. It's really cool. Very anime, very Monster Hunter. Um, yeah. Oh,
And
we all important thing is that you're talking about seeing it from the Highborn's perspective. The plateau runs is that Dalinar does not use bridge crews. He uses giant bridges propelled
purple
by
shoals.
chols. Yeah.
So
So
he basically has siege machinery.
yeah, that are slow, and that's one of the reasons he hasn't been doing too many battles lately. Other than you get the sense through these that like he's different from the other High Lords. He's like more disciplined, using scouts to like make sure nothing's happening on the approach to this kind of hunt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the hunt actually goes very wrong. On the way there, though, Dalinar and Elhokar decide to have a friendly bet and race to see who could get to the plateau, and they're bringing a whole lot of like unarmored people as well, just to view, like spectate them killing this chasm fiend. And so they get to the plateau, and there's two plateaus. They planned it out. It's like, okay, this plateau was going to be where they fought the Chasm Fiend. This plateau, which was set up a little higher, is where all the people viewing it were going to be. And the Chasm Fiend ends up climbing up to the top of the viewing plateau, which caused a lot of panic.
Yeah, and people
And-
died.
and people died. Elhokar's saddle girth was broken, and it flung him from his horse, which it sorry, words are hard this morning, which causes creates another plot line for our story here.
Yeah.
And Dalinar saves the king. And Renarin. So we also see Renarin tried to go in there to fight without Shard Blade or
Yeah.
Shard Plate, and his dad's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't do this. You're just gonna die." He's like, I had to help somehow."
Yeah, Renarin's a cool character. So he's the second son of Dalinar, and he's got so the Alethi are like super warriors. They're like kind of Spartans. Like their society is built around war. Um, and Renarin has like either like asthma or some sort of like anemia or something like that. So he's not a fighter. He can't really do anything. So he's always feeling inadequate around, his legendary warrior general dad and like the legendary duelist brother. He's kind of the odd one out. So you don't get too much of him in these things, but I like him. He's a cool character.
I made a note here. Renarin there was a description of Renarin that kind of reminds me of myself. And this is, his voice was measured, controlled. He always paused before he replied to a question, as if testing the words in his mind. So I'm like, Renarin he has the desire to be like his dad and his brother. And it's pressure from the outside as well. Be like, hey, you're the son of this great general, and your brother is a great duelist. Like, you should be as cool as them. And people like other high princes and other nobility kind of make fun of him for that, but he wants to do that. His body just can't. And so he develops his mind a little more. Um, it's kind of funny. I think it was the movie was Wedding Crashers, where the weird ass brother was like painted a he's like a painter, but he's like an emo boy. It kind of reminds me like Bernard and that character kind of remind me of each other a little bit.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in a while, so I wouldn't say.
Yeah, don't watch it with kids
No.
censored, because like the beginning, it's just like boobies after boobies after boobies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you like boobies, which Adolin does,
Yes.
Adolin's a playboy. But if you like boobies, go watch Wedding Crashers.
Yeah. Yeah, the fight's really cool because the Chasm Fiend's this giant lobster thing that's a kaiju basically. And it's like three kaiju versus three power armored anime characters. And it's really cool. And like Dalinar catches the claw to save the king. And it's like such an anime moment. Like I really want the Way of Kings to be an anime. I think that's how it would work. I don't think it would work as a live action unless you had a $1 billion budget.
Yeah, I think they said what the claws of the Chasm Fiend are the size of a horse.
Yeah.
Oh, we moved right into chapter 13. How about that?
Yeah. Going on.
I thought the yeah, so chapter 12, it was they were making their way to the plateau.
Yeah.
And then chapter 13, 10 heartbeats, it continues that, and it starts the fight. Let's see. You said Vengeance. Vengeance is Elikar's horse.
Is it? Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it's the Vengeance Pact
yeah.
to
The
kill
Vengeance
essentially.
Pact is like all the high princes are like, hey, we made this pact to avenge Gavilar's death by fighting the Parshendi, and we're just gonna fight them indefinitely on the Shattered Plains,
Yeah.
and not try to figure out who they are really or what.
Yeah. And you get the sense through like Dalinar's POV and stuff that like if the Gem Hearts weren't there, the war would probably have been ended because they've been here for 6 years, which is so long. It's such a long time.
That is a long war.
Yeah, like I think like World War II is like 6 years. So yeah, it was a long time. But yeah, you get the sense that like well, he even says it that they're not really trying to win the war anymore. They just are like, hey, we can make a shit ton of money, so we might as well just stay here. And we're doing the vengeance, and it seems like Dalinar and for a certain extent Sadius are the ones that really care about keeping the kingdom together because like he says like the he says it later but um like the most volatile time for a kingdom is right after the first king's death. And it's true because like if you know about like Alexander the Great, after he died, his kingdom quickly split up to like five different kingdoms and stuff like that. So
Yeah, because yeah, I remember that part. It was pretty cool because it's talking it was like, okay, people support the first king because they went through a whole lot of strife together, and everybody's like, okay, yeah, this is the king, as long as it wasn't like a tyrant or like a dictator or something, right?
yeah, and
And
even
so
like yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
and then the next king usually is the offspring of the first king, and they haven't proven it's just like a an inheritance. And so like, well, why do we want to follow this person? So they have to prove that they're worthy of it. Um, but then like at the same time, the kingdom itself hasn't had enough time to really gel together and solidify itself as a kingdom. And so it's the most volatile point, and they're the most criticized ruler, really.
Yeah, it's cool. And like Alucard, he's a really interesting character. Well, we could get to him later, but he like Renarin is also kind of in the shadow of his father.
Yeah, definitely. And people do question him. Like even there's conversations between Navani and Dalinar where Navani is Elikar's mother. And so Navani's like, oh, he's not a great king, is he? And Dalinar's like, he's a great kid. Like he's a great person.
Yeah,
He's doing his best. If he would just listen to me. But then at that point, it's just like a puppet,
yeah.
like who's really running. Yeah, I think I got sidetracked. I was going to mention you had mentioned the him grabbing the claw, and I made a note. The Chasm Fiend's claw is the size of a horse, so it's just a giant thing. But yeah, the fight. I don't know if did you have more about the non-fight stuff?
Uh, no, we can get into the fight.
The fight's pretty cool because it's like I didn't get the sense before. Either I glossed over it or didn't take the time to really comprehend, but the shard blades don't actually cut the limbs off, like a living limb
Yeah,
off. It just like makes it dead.
yeah. Basically severs the nerves.
Yeah. So as they're fighting the Chasm Fiend, they're just with the shard blade, the shard bearers are slicing through as many legs as they can, just disabling these legs on the shard bearer. It'd be interesting if the Chasm Fiends actually end up having like regenerative powers like Godzilla does, And so as if the fight takes too long, he starts like regaining use of the legs.
I mean, maybe it has a heart of giant crystal and full of starlight. So I don't know what if it has other powers. But yeah,
Yeah, so far I haven't seen any, but yeah.
I guess the thing to note is uh, Dalinar and Adolin's horses, the Rashadium or whatever.
Yeah, Rashadium horses.
Yeah, they're just like the best horses in the world or whatever. They're like Clydesdales or something. They're cool. It's kind of funny. They kind of remind me of Land's horse from Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if he was like, oh, Land's horse is so cool. I'll put a cool horse in this book too.
Do you remember Land's horse's name?
Oh, it's what Fael says her name is because it's really funny. He's like, no, that's it starts with an M, right?
A Mandarb?
Yeah, Mandarb, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, she's like, I'm Mandarb. It's like, no, that's Mandarb. Well, I'll be a falcon. He's like, God damn it.
Yeah, well, it's worth noting here again, 10 Heartbeats has come up. That's the name of the chapter, and it's really described. We see Dalinar talking about it, which is funny because, or not actually talking about it, but his inner monologue. And he said during battles, 10 heartbeats is so long, but he at the same time he states that during a battle his heart rate is increased. And so really it should be like 10 heartbeats for somebody who's like adrenaline pumped.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to summon their shard blade quicker than somebody who's just not as adrenaline pumped. So they'll like win a duel, right? And it's like I was more pumped up and you were slow, and so mine got here first, and then I just like stunk and you're dead.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if we're gonna learn why it's 10 heartbeats. Or
Maybe.
if it's just like uh, a weird quirk of whatever magic the shard blades are.
Yeah,
It's like,
possibly.
or maybe they'll learn to like shorten it and they can like instantly summon it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think we'll learn more about the shard blades in upcoming books.
I would assume so.
Or let's not do that and just let it be a mystery the entire time.
Yeah.
So Elhokar gets the killing blow, of
Yeah.
course, because he's the king. It was his hunt. This hunt actually kind of reminds me of obviously it went better for Elhokar than it did for what's homeboy's name?
Yeah. Robert Baratheon.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for being on the same page as me.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Poor Robert Baratheon.
Yeah. Though it reminds me more of like English like fox hunts and stuff where like or like the rich people that go and like just like have boars or stuff run past them and they shoot them. You see some of that in Succession, which is a really good show. Because like it was supposed to be on the other ridge, and they were just gonna like pelt it with arrows and like go in and like stab it and kill it. So it wasn't supposed to be a giant fight, which is interesting. How like in like a lot of societies, like the rich just go out and like easily kill stuff instead of actually like becoming a really good hunter.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because it reminds me of that as well. One of more recent shows that we really liked is Downton Abbey, and there's a lot of scenes where they're going out on hunts and you know taking the hound dogs and stuff and walking across fields. So, but yeah, this was a cool introduction to like the dangers of the world.
Mm.
So, almost kind of like, I mean, the Shattered Plains, the dangers of the Shattered Plains are almost like the Blight, the dangers that you'd find in the Blight in Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
But they're all crabs, all of
Yeah.
them. All of
Crab
them.
people.
Chapter 15, the decoy. Um, and again, continuing Adolin Dalinar, they are. This is post fight, so they're still on the Shattered Plains. They haven't made it back to the war camp quite yet. We see so like Adolin has brought the casualty list. There's 50 are dead, 100 more are wounded. Um, oh yeah, sorry. I was reading a note. I was like, that doesn't make sense. But so Dalinar, we learned that Dalinar is following the codes of war. There's actually a nice little insert in the book that listed the 5 codes of war. One of them, and this is the reasoning why Dalinar doesn't use bridge runs, is because he won't let anybody do something that he will not do. And Dalinar will not run a bridge. 1, because it's dangerous. 2, because it sucks. So he will not let his armies use bridge runners, bridge crews.
Even though I guess if you wanted to, you could have like, um, people with shields and stuff protecting them. The reason, I don't know if we know the reason that Sadius won't do it for his troops yet, but if there's ways you could do it safer.
Oh yeah,
But he
we
doesn't.
know that in this section, I think we did find out that so Sadius, he wants them armor would slow them down, and it's not in this chapter, but he does mention like armor will slow them down, and he found out that uh, they would stop the Parshendi would stop attacking the bridge crews and attack the army, and they would lose soldiers, which are more expensive to maintain and upkeep than a bridge crew.
Yeah, which in a grisly way makes sense.
Yeah, it sucks, but
Yeah.
it's true. Utilitarian. So Sadius insults Renarin, and then so Dalinar almost comes to dueling blows with him. Um, somebody calms them down. It's like he's like, "Did you just insult so and so?" He's like, "No, I didn't. You misheard me."
Yeah. Oh, it's like, did I just hear you insult my kid? Because if I did, I would be forced to summon my Shardblade to kill you. So perhaps it was just the wind. He's like, perhaps it was. And like runs away. But you see that Dalinar still has some teeth because there's a lot of rumors and stuff in the section of how Dalinar seems to have kind of lost it. He's not really going on bridge runs that too often. He seems maybe be going insane? Question mark. Um, but you get to see a little bit of his cold-blooded personality come through.
Yeah, Wit catches up to the king. So, and I don't know if it's in this chapter where we kind of we learn that Dalinar does have the visions yet, and so like people during high storms gets these visions, and we learn later on that it's been a few months that since they started. So
Yeah.
which I was thinking, I was like, I wonder if the visions started right around the time that Syl kind of started observing Kaladin. Like if there was some event that put both of these things into play.
Maybe.
And
Also,
also Shallan's dad dying.
Yeah. And also maybe because Wit is kind of new, right? Maybe when Wit came also, like all these events converge.
Yeah, I don't know when Wit showed up.
I guess Navani knew Wit, so probably he was earlier than that.
Yeah. But also, I like on the next episode of Wild and Out Roshar edition. Yes, you see, Sadius, you make it too easy. An uneducated half-brained serving boy with a hangover could make mock of you. I am left with no need to exert myself, and your very nature makes mockery of my mockery. And so it is that through sheer stupidity, you make me look incompetent. I don't know if you ever watched the show Wild and Out with Nick Cannon.
No, no.
They just like hurl insults at each other. Like, it's just like it's like you got served, but with insults.
Nice.
Or it's like a rap battle, but just insults. It kind of just down, not down, Wit doing that to everybody just kind of reminded me.
Yeah.
So
I like that Renarin and Wit's kind of a banter. It's fun because it shows kind of Renarin's. He's kind of shy and stuff, but he's got some wit himself. And yeah, I like it.
yeah, he's like the only one. Like he says, "Can you say such and such?" And Renarin says, "Such and such." He's like, "Ah, clever guy.
Yeah.
I guess I can't insult you." So other things in this chapter was the decoy. And what I wrote it down what the decoy referred to. Oh yeah. The decoy. So Sadius, the decoy refers to Sadius. So Sadius and Dalinar and Sadius are talking, or no, Dalinar is talking to Adolin because Adolin's like, I don't like Sadius. He has to go away. We have to dispose of him. Dalinar is like, no, we have to trust him. He really does want the best for the king, and I'll prove it. And so he tells him that he thinks that first of all, Adolin thinks Sadius is trying to kill Elhokar, and this is after they were investigating the cut saddle, the broken girth, and so Dalinar tells him the night of Gavilar's death, and that Sadius became a decoy. He was that guy that ran off. You mentioned last time, pretending to be the king, and it was his idea to do so. And the decoy failed, and so the king died. Dalinar that night was drunk, and so Dalinar was having a hard time forgiving Sadius because Sadius's plan failed and the king died, and then Dalinar couldn't. Sadius couldn't. Sorry, Sadius couldn't forgive Dalinar because Dalinar was drunk that night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also interesting your reminder of like how much this character has changed because like you couldn't really think of him getting like blackout drunk and like because it seems like the death of his brother really changed Dalinar for the better. But yeah, it's interesting because like Sadius is a dick, and like you see him a lot from Kaladin's perspective of like he's enforcing all these like brutal conditions on the bridgemen and stuff like that. And then like, but you also see kind of like why he's doing the bridges because he's like he wants to like do the vengeance pact because he also failed the king, and like so he's kind of like pushing and like doesn't really care about the life lost as long as he can like you know also win a lot of money, but hopefully fulfill his oath.
Yeah. One other big thing to note in this chapter is Dalinar's wife. So Dalinar himself remembers nothing of the woman. she's been like excised from his memory. And so it's like he's got all these, whenever he thinks about her, he's like, well, I know I was married to her, but all the memories are just like foggy and fuzzy.
Yeah. Which
And
is crazy.
unfortunate and a mystery, right? It's like,
Yeah.
why? Why
Mhm.
is that?
Yeah. When I first read that, I was like, this is weird and kind of cool. Like, it sets up like there's other magic or something that could do that, and it's really weird. I
Yeah.
guess I guess we'll find out more about it. But it's
Wonder
really
what that's going to be.
yeah.
Anything more in that? I mean, Dalinar talks about the Way of Kings book and notes in there, passages from there. He talks about a king doing a menial task, carrying a stone for a poor man. There's like this whole story where this man was carrying the stone and nobody was going to help him. It kind of reminded me of Jesus carrying the cross.
Yeah. Um, just that I guess of the King Alucard, he's very paranoid. So like he sees assassins in like every every corner and like stuff like that, which makes sense because his father was assassinated. But
Yeah.
so he's because they're like it could have been cut or maybe it was just worn and like snapped at the wrong time because they're like oh they're thinking it's like it'd be a very bad way to assassinate somebody because a fall from a horse and shard plate wouldn't really do much, and it seems crazy to do that and somehow organize the chasm fiend to like that seems like a terrible plan that would so they're like not super convinced that it was like a attempt on his life, but the king is very paranoid. He's like you're not taking this seriously and that would have repercussions.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where the investigation goes.
Hmm.
And next chapter for them is chapter 18, High Prince of War. So yeah. So we're back at the war camp. We've jumped ahead some time, like a couple of days probably. Um, and Adolin has been looking, uh, going around to leather workers trying to investigate the girth. They agree that it was cut, but it like it looks like it could have been accidentally cut. Like it was worn, like the saddle and the girth were worn already, so it could have just brushed against something like a piece of the shard plate, just brushed against it and cut it,
Yeah.
or buckles hanging and it got caught. Uh, then let's see. Dalinar refused. So Dalinar is there's another gem heart that's been spotted on the Shattered Plains. Dalinar's like, yeah, we're not going to go after that one. They're going to stay in the war camp. Trying to look over what else did you have for this chapter? I have a lot of notes here, so I'm trying not to like
Yeah.
be silent to read them over.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to think what happened in this chapter. But
There's a guy Teshev who's relaying all this a lot of correspondence to Dalinar, so he's being caught up on the news. Um, Dalinar like sends a missive to the king suggesting the lower the cost for cast food for those who pay on time. And that goes back to there's some of the high princes were behind on their payments, and they're questioning why they have to pay for more expensive soul cast food when they have their own farmers. And so like the king is making them utilize the soul cast food, but pay
Yeah,
for it, which is
which
more expensive.
which is smart. It's basically like so like the I'm trying to the Alethi, they're a kingdom, but they're really not because they just formed a kingdom. So they're trying to like have some power over the High Lords by like forcing them to pay for the soul casters, which are used for like food and like building shelters and stuff. So it's like one way that Dalinar and Sadeas can like keep the other High Lords in line and make them like actually have some allegiance to the king without like because yeah because like they're like so like they're not paying, which is really bad because it's like further weakens the king's authority. So it's an interesting little political conundrum that they're in.
Yeah, I like the way that this information is given. There's so much information that is passed to between characters while they're like traveling somewhere.
Yeah. And also in this is we get Dalinar promising Renarin shard plates if
Yes.
he wins one, which is cool. Because that will because when you're wearing shard plate, like you don't really get tired as easily and stuff. So it seems like he could fight in it. Um, it's a little bit of a nepotism that even Renarin's like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And he's like, "Well, the other High Lords do a lot of other more extravagant stuff, so I can at least spoil my son a little bit."
Yeah, I think what he said is I usually give mine to somebody, while they always give theirs to their family members or people that they really know. So who's going to judge me for doing it once?
Yeah,
And this is where they speak of Dalinar's visions during like the high storms. It's like, is Dalinar mad? Um, and of course, the last section in this chapter, Dalinar suggests he be made High Prince of War. And so he goes to Elhokar and says, look, you really should take all of the high princes, the 10 high princes, and you give them a realm or duty to be over. So almost like Master of Coin, Master of Whispers, and A Song of Ice and Fire.
mm.
And so he's like, look, you need to put me in charge as High Prince of War. And Elhokar thinks he's gone kind of crazy and weak,
Yeah,
like his dad did at the end, because his dad had started reading The Way of Kings
mm.
shortly before he was assassinated.
Yeah,
Um, is this where Dalinar had already suggested to the king that he stop fighting, right?
yeah. I think this
And
is where he says it more often, though.
and then the king was like, "Well, no, we can't stop fighting." And that's when Dalinar was like, "Okay, let me try a new strategy.
Yeah,
Let's end this war. Let's put an end to it. Let's destroy so many Parshendi that they have no choice but to surrender,
yeah,
and that satisfies the vengeance pact and it ends the war." And so he wants to become High Prince of War so that he can lead all 10 princedoms in this venture.
yeah. Because he's worried about their homeland because since basically all the important political figures have been on the Shattered Plains for 6 years, like, and like you even see it kind of in the first chapter with Kaladin, like there's still like my like skirmishes going on in Althkar while the High Prince is away. So there's still like stuff, and you could see it destabilizing further, like the longer the High Princes are gone. So he's like, all right, we really should get back. And he's also getting the visions of there's a lot of things where it's like unite them. He gets visions of like uniting the Alethi people. And he's like, well, can't really do it while we're at war and everybody's scrambling for gem hearts and stuff. So we need to end the war and go back home. I would rather just leave, but nobody's gonna do that. So I guess I have to actually win the war. So that's what he's trying to get Elokar to do, which makes sense.
Yeah. So a few cool things. Well, Dalinar does say this little quote, little foreshadowing here. It says, "I think you'll sooner tame the high storms." He says this to another Bright Lord. I was like,
Do
and
you
then
think? Sorry, go ahead.
the next thing is the Tranquilin Halls. So there's almost like a Valhalla type attitude or belief um in Roshar, at least
Yeah.
with the Vorins. Yeah, it's definitely a Vorin belief or teaching. So
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, do you think that Gavilar was having the visions before he died, like Dalinar was? He is now.
I don't think so. Because just because of how long, like how recent those visions were for Dalinar, and Dalinar had been reading. I'm pretty sure had been being read to the Way of Kings and other things in these past 6 years. It wasn't just in the past 6 to 8 months that he just was like, oh, let me start reading this.
True.
He was after he was told, the last words of his brother, he started like looking into what does this mean? What was he knew his brother was reading the Way of Kings, so he's probably like, well, maybe it's in there. What are the most important words a man can say? Like, let me figure this out. So I don't think I think there was an event. Hey Nix, welcome to the conversation. Uh I think there was an event that kind of triggered a lot of the things that we're seeing with Dalinar, Kaladin, and Shallan.
Yeah, I could see that. It was just he was like, you're acting like my father did towards the end. So I was thinking maybe like towards the end of Gavilar's life, he was like the first to get the visions. But yeah, I don't actually know. It's just a thought.
I took that as a um I took him saying you're acting like my father towards the end as in regards to him wanting to like unite, like not not fight anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think they were fighting. I don't know. It's weird. There's a treaty. Like they had a treaty with the Parshendi, so they were fighting them on something.
I don't think they were fighting. I think it was a trade treaty.
I don't know, but I mean, still, it's still it was still some kind of battle of some sorts, right? I mean, even if it
No,
wasn't like physical.
sure. From what I got it gathered is like basically that they met the Parshendi. They were like, "Oh, this is weird that Parshmen can talk and stuff." And they started talking with them, and then like learned about the Chasm Fiends and other stuff. And then like Gavilar was trying to like get a trade treaty and maybe like fold them into the Empire. But like there's no actual like combat going on.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, I always think there was combat, and but
I don't. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there wasn't.
okay. So Starfalls, chapter 19. Um, this is a vision chapter. Dalinar's. We learned that this is his 12th vision in a few months. It's the vision is set in the we learned from a character in there the eighth epoch, the year 337 in Natin. in a place called Alethalar, which is like a precursor to Alethkar. So the visions feel like they actually were events that happened, and now like Dalinar has been chosen to play the role of a person in that
Yeah.
event.
He's like quantum leaping.
Yeah, or like you never read the Ready Player One book, right?
Nah, nah.
So there's a thing that was created in the Ready Player One world where um, you take movies, and it was like a futuristic style of video game. You take a movie and you'd be a character in that movie, and so you'd get points based on your mannerisms, your delivery of the line, your inflection of the line, and you'd lose points if you delivered the incorrect line and things like that.
Like very Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, so it reminded me of that.
Yeah. So for me, it was like Quantum Leap or like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
The Animus, if you ever played those games.
I didn't beat it. The only Assassin's Creed game I played was the Pirates one, which was fun. Was it? It wasn't Black Sails, was it?
Black Flag, maybe something like that.
I think Black Flag.
Yeah,
it's really fun when I played it.
So those games have a meta narrative to where you're like a dude in like the real world or like modern day, and they made this thing called the Animus, where you can go in and like relive. You have like genetic memories of your ancestors, kind of like Dune, and you can go in a thing and you can like relive your ancestral memories. So like that's why it's like you go back to like Jerusalem and the Crusades and stuff because you have your ancestors there. So it's cool, but it's kind of like this.
Yeah. All right, so
this chapter's cool.
It is really cool. I really love it. It reminds me of the things that I loved about book 6 of Harry Potter, with all of the pensieve things. So Dalinar, basic story of this vision, he saves a girl from barn to house. He's being chased by dark figures that are bigger than a chasm fiend. He brings the girl to the house, lets the wife lets him in. He figures out he's married to this woman, and this is the daughter. So he's Heb, the daughter Seelie. Tafa is the wife. And so they break into the house, then he leads them away, and then two shard bearers appear. We find out that they're Knights Radiant. They save them. They heal them with Stormlight. And then Dalinar decides to join them to fight these Midnight Essences, is what the Knights Radiants called these monsters.
You go to what, Uruthuru?
Yeah, and to go to Uruthuru,
yeah,
he says you must go to Uruthuru and act with honor, and honor will aid you, is what they tell him. Yeah. And they also say you must continue to trust Sadeas, or a voice. Sorry, they don't. The voice at the end of the vision tells him that he must continue to trust Sadeas, and that he will send what help he can. So whoever this person is going to send Dalinar some help.
Yeah, because Dalinar asks, he's like, stop being so cryptic. Just tell me if what I'm doing is good. Should I trust Sadeas? And it says yes. The voice says yes. Yeah, this chapter's cool. You can see more like crazy monsters that apparently don't exist in our time yet. Or maybe they're killed off. Also, you see the Knights Radiance, and you see that their shard plate is like different from modern shard plate. It like glows and stuff and has cool stuff. And also it seems like they can like Iron Man, they can just dissolve their helmets instead of taking them off and like dissolve and put them back on.
They could do that in modern times.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
Oh.
I swear in these chapters, he puts it on and
Yeah,
makes his helmet translucent.
no, like, yeah, you can see through the helmet. You can't like. He made it sound like they couldn't do that.
I
Like
think it was a
because
visor that goes up and down.
I was thinking it was like Iron Man and or Spider Man, like where it's like nanotechnology, where it
Oh,
just
where it's just like
dissolves.
zoom,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's what I got.
So some of it's really hard to like visualize what the hell is happening.
Yeah,
Like I Wheel of Time had the same thing. It's like, how do I visualize the Dark One? What is the Dark? Like what is he? Where does he exist? What does the boar look like? Like, but I'm not gonna go into that. But just things in fantasy are sometimes kind of,
yeah.
the magic of it makes it hard to visualize.
And the only reason I brought that up is because he's. I think he says like, "Where did the helmet go?" or something, because they have to like take it off.
Yeah.
Oh, and Nata Natan is the old name for the Shattered Plains. So something crazy happened there to turn it into this desolate wasteland.
Yeah, something broke it.
Yeah, like an asteroid or something hit it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe hopefully we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, so this chapter does um, has some Cosmere connection. That's all I'll say. So listeners, if y'all were interested, just try to figure it out, try to solve it for yourself.
Yeah.
So it was a surprise to me when I read it on this reread after having read some other things recently. So
All right.
it's nothing huge. It's just like a Easter egg. So
That's fun.
you have anything more about his vision?
No, it's just very cool, and it kind of like they can like fly. The Knights Radiant can like fly. Um, so it just gives you kind of like excitement for like upcoming books or this book of like when they get these crazy powers and
Kind of
stuff
like
like
the
that.
Age of Legends
Yeah.
real time. It's like, what were some cool things that they could do back then?
Yeah.
So,
Um, yeah, it was a really cool chapter.
chapter 22, eyes, hands, or spheres. This Wit's humor in this one, like, which is the chapter title references. I laughed really hard because he's like, so he says Dalinar says something. I didn't highlight that, but then Wit says, to what? Wit said, eyes twinkling. Eyes, hands, or spheres? I'd lend you one of the first, but by definition, a man can only have one eye. And if it was given away, who would be Wit then? I'd lend you one of the second, but I fear my simple hands have done digging in the muck far too often to suit one such as you. And if I gave you one of my spheres, what would I spend the remaining one on? I'm quite attached to both of my spheres, you see, he hesitated. Or, well, you can't see. Would you like to? He stood up off his chair and reached for his belt. It's just like, I read that to Christy and she's like, what?
Yeah.
I think I sent you a meme the other day and it was what's his name? The guy that played the Purple Man,
Mm.
and he was Doctor
David
Who.
Tennant.
Yeah, it was David Tennant and his Doctor Who, and it was like the meme was whenever I try to talk to my family about Cosmere stuff, this is what they hear, and he's like, "Flippy floppy, floopy floppity bloppity bloop bloop," and showed that to Christy too, and she's like, "Yeah, pretty much. That's what it sounds
Yeah.
like."
Yeah, that's all. If you're not into any of the fantasy stuff, like it will just sound like nonsense. Because it kind of is, but it's fun.
Yeah. So this chapter, the saddle investigation kind of hits a wall, and everything's taking place at the King's Feast now. Um, saddle investigation hits a wall. It was worn before. Can't really tell what sliced it. Adolin wants to talk about Dalinar's vision. So, like, it was worth noting Dalinar was going to go to another war camp to talk to one of the high princes about joining him on a joint plateau assault.
Mhm.
And there was a high storm incoming. So he decided to go back to his own war camp so that others didn't see him, because when he's having a vision, he's yelling and talking in another language that nobody can understand. And so he didn't want to be seen doing that.
Yeah.
And so Adolin was privy to seeing that and wanted to talk to Dalinar about the vision, but Dalinar does not want to talk to him about it.
Yeah. Adolin's worried that Dalinar might be going crazy, and then because you get the sense and you see it kind of play out that like following the codes and also they are like so different from all the other Alethi. Like they're not drinking that much. Adon seems to be a partier, so he wants to get a little drunk, but he can't. He has to drink the blue wine. Their wines,
Orange.
yeah, the orange wine. Their wines are color coded by alcohol content, which is funny. Um,
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, hey, the orange one I think is the one that doesn't get you as drunk.
I wonder what they use to make wine because they don't have grapes. Maybe.
Maybe they do have grapes.
Well, other like plants are like rock buds and weird things. So maybe they have like grapes that like go inside their little shells or when the ice storms come or something. Yeah. I mean, you can
Who
make
knows?
wine out of anything, like rice
Yeah.
wine and stuff.
And this is where Wit is insulting all the guests as they're walking in.
Mm-hmm.
And like the king's like, Wit, can you not insult all of my guests?
Yep. This is where we're introduced to Navani.
Yes, Navani shows up unexpectedly, and Dalinar is like avoiding her. And like Dalinar's monologue in her thoughts about her are hilarious because she's just like, God, she's so beautiful. Like, oh, oh, but oh, no, this is my brother's wife. Like, I know. And I was married. I know I was married, and I know I love my wife. But gosh, she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, Wit also tells Dalinar that other high princes know that Dalinar suggested abandoning the Vengeance Pact. And so that Dalinar's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Navani returns and gives three reasons specifically. And one is Vadens have perfected their quote half shards. They're claiming the shields can stop blows from a shard blade. So they'd been working on, and there was already a mention earlier in the book that the Vadens were almost able to create shard blades of their own, shard plates of their own. She also came back to protect Elokar, and the queen had, so she left the queen in Kolinar. I think no, it is their base in Kolinar.
I think so. I think that's the capital, right?
Yeah, I think that's the capital. She was working with the queen, but then she said, "I think the queen had it handled, so I came to the war camp." And then the third reason was to talk to Dalinar about some things that were said in the camp,
Yeah.
which is weird. Like she came to the camp because of some things that were said in the camp.
Yeah, she probably has like spies and stuff letting her know what's going on. But yeah, I get the sense that like um she was kind of bored, just kind of helping the queen rule. She wanted to be where the action was. Um, and she could influence, and she also likes Dalinar. So
She does like Dalinar.
yeah,
Maybe they'll ship together.
maybe they will.
And the so this is where we find out, because you mentioned it last time and I was like, I don't remember that. Men and women eat different foods, because like the women were sitting there eating food and Dalinar was like, I remember when I was young, I tried women's food. It was too sweet for me. I was like, what? Why
Yeah,
would they eat different foods?
it's weird. It's very fantasy and it's very funny, but like all the men and women are like separated by tables because like Navani is like she's like she approaches him after he's done eating. He's like, you can't sit at the men's table, so she like gets a little like chair
Stool and sits near.
right next to it. I'm like, I'm not actually sitting at it. But yeah, it's weird. It's
And
a
they're
weird thing
not,
with their society.
and women aren't allowed to talk to men while they're eating either.
Yeah,
So
and
like
like
Dalinar is like, I'm gonna take as long as I can on eating here.
yeah, and like men can't read, which is funny.
They're not supposed to read.
Yeah, not supposed to read.
It's considered very strange if they can.
Yeah. Or I guess read stuff that aren't glyphs.
Yeah, so glyphs. Yeah, to me, I think glyphs
It's,
are more like,
it's still reading, but
yeah, but it's not going to be like, you're not going to have philosophical stuff written in glyphs.
yeah.
You're going to have like, to me, the glyphs are more like labels.
Yeah.
And then I mean, not all. There's still kind of like a class level and cutoff for reading glyphs as well, because like it was noted Kaladin is able to read glyphs, and they were like, oh, you must have been, you know, a higher dark eye
Yeah.
to be able to read glyphs, have that knowledge. And of course, you know, we know he has
Surgeons.
surgeon skills. So
Yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, back in the medieval days, like the peasants and stuff couldn't read, but the kings and stuff could, so it's just funny. Yeah. Yeah, like I like Navani a lot. She's a really interesting character. She like um she's really cool.
yeah. So the other big piece here is we find out Elhokar announces that Sadeas is the High Prince of Information,
Mm.
and he's been tasked to investigate the saddle. And so like this does two things. One, Elhokar did take Dalinar's suggestion of granting high princes a realm to be over.
Mm.
However, it was not his. Like he didn't get what he requested. And we do learn later that it's would have seemed too um maybe nepotistic, if that's a word.
Well, what I got from it is that the king kind of sucks at politics, and Sadeas played him to get power. So Sadeas was like, oh no, High Prince of War is too bad. But what if you make me High Prince of Information?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then I can find out who tried to assassinate you. And the king's like, ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. But it also shows in so yeah, that that idea of it being too dangerous came from Sadeas and not the king. But because the king kind of agreed to make Sadeas the High Prince of Information to look into the thing, gives off the feeling that the king doesn't trust Dalinar,
Yeah.
which is dangerous for Dalinar.
Yep.
And so, like, Dalinar's suggestion of that, granting them realms, it seems to have backfired.
Yeah. And it's really funny because Navani's like, my son kind of sucks at this thing. He's like, what? No. Yeah, kind of. But Dalinar sticks up for him.
Maybe.
Do we know Alucard's house? Would it be Cohen, I guess?
Elhokar Cohen.
Alucard, yeah, okay.
It's Gavilar. He's Gavilar's son, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have an army of his own. It'd be Dalinar's. Or like would Gavilar's I guess he would have Gavilar's like land and properties and stuff.
Yes. But yeah, Dalinar is the high prince
Of the Cohen.
who's like in command of the kings. Like the king is over all the princedoms.
Yeah.
So basically when the feeling I got is Gavilar abdicated the Kholin princedom to be king over all the princedoms, which meant that his brother Dalinar is in control of the Kholin princedom.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Because it seems weird to have your own princedom and be over everybody.
True. That does mean that that Elhokar doesn't really have any power of his own.
No.
Yeah.
But he's the big chess piece mover.
Yeah, but like he doesn't have his own army, which is kind of interesting. So it kind of does show that he doesn't really have teeth. He's just kind of a puppet.
Yeah.
Because there's no royal Alethi army or anything like that.
No. But I mean, it would have been. It's hard. He commands all of the princedoms armies.
Yeah, but
he could if they weren't just stuck on the plains and fighting each other.
Yeah, but in order to have your own actual power, you need kind of your own army to be like, hey, other guys, just thinking about I guess in Game of Thrones, they had the Realms army, but he also had the yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess if he had sons, I guess if he abdicated, I'm just thinking the line of succession for Elhokar's sons to the Kholins. I guess since he gave it up, it would only be Dalinar's children to take
Yeah,
over.
the Kholin princedom would belong to Dalinar and his children.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Chapter 4.
24.
Yeah, chapter 24, Gallery of Maps. This takes place in the King's map room. Dalinar is in there at first, meeting with Royan, and then later with Adolin. So he's just looking at the maps. He tries to recruit Royan for his support. And while he's talking to him, he's thinking about the maps in the Shattered Plains. This is where he proposes a joint plateau assault and then promises to give the first shard to Royan, but then he'll keep the second. He's like, I'll give you the first one, but then I'll keep the second. Uh, and then he asks if Dalinar will be at the feast, and that a high storm is supposedly coming. Then he leaves. Adolin joins and says that Sadeas requested entry to camp to investigate. And then Adolin calls Dalinar out about trusting his visions and putting House Kholin on the line. So, like, Dalinar was like, "I'm doing these things," and Adolin's like, "Who suggested that? Like, where'd you get that idea from?" He's like, "The voice in the vision." He says, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Yeah, they have a kind of little argument, which makes sense because, like, from Adolin's perspective, Dalinar is going crazy and it could, like, kill everyone. Right. So, like, he has the right and probably the responsibility to, like, call him out, um, which is fun. Um, you do get like Dalinar getting a little angry, which is fun because he's been somewhat stoic through these chapters, but it seems like he's still got a little bit of the Blackthorn in him.
Yeah.
I do like the part with the other High Prince. It's like it does show like how flawed the system is, where it's like I'm not gonna work with you and like be your subservient to you, and he's like, but you already are. Like the king is right here. You're supposed to be with the king. So like it really shows how fractured and the Alethi think. Like they're kind of like very much like, yeah, we have a king, I guess, but like we're really just these little princedoms.
Yeah. No, I like that because sorry, I'm tripping over my words again. The what also shows the kind of fracturedness is that they'll claim the rights of certain plateaus, and then they will sell the rights of those plateaus to other high princes so that they can use them for their bridge runs. And you can't use another high prince's plateau without permission, even if it was like the quickest way to something. You'd have to go around a long way.
Yeah.
And so they do that to prevent each other from getting gem hearts. And along those same lines, Dalinar, when he was looking at the maps and thinking about them, he was noted the large tower, so the large plateau that they call the tower, which they have never won a battle against the Parshendi on that plateau. There's been 27 assaults on it, and none of them have worked. Dalinar was actually rebuffed twice. So out of those 27, Dalinar had two of them.
Yeah. I do wish we got a little bit more mention of like the casualties that they've suffered through this war. Because you get the sense that like they're not losing that many people. If like all 12 high princes are still able to like function, either that or Elhokar is like highly populated. Because like because that's 27 runs on the tower which they've never won. So that's 27 losses in combat, and like they've been doing this for 6 years. They still probably have a decent like casualty rate, but it doesn't seem to be straining their like resources too much, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And like don't really have uh um you know sorry, information on how many Parshendi casualties there are. So it's like it's a weird war. Like I guess there's like tiny skirmishes with like a couple of thousand people every time, where they'll lose like maybe a couple hundred. I'm guessing each plateau run, because it couldn't be more than that, or else like you're getting like the 50,000 troops lost over like 6 years, which would be pretty devastating to them. I would guess because they can't have Like each high prince can't have more than like 10, 15,000 troops, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Or else you're
It
getting,
we yeah, it's hard to really tell
yeah.
like the population of Roshar and the division among them.
Yeah. So like I wish that they could get in the weeds a little bit more just for my little military tactics type fun brain. Uh,
Yeah, the other thing I got from this chapter, I mean, it was just a whole lot of uh, conversation.
yeah.
And so, like, one, they, sorry, the people have been talking about Dalinar needing to abdicate his rule to Adolin. And so he starts thinking about doing that for the sake of himself and his family and all the princedoms in the kingdom. And so I really felt that this chapter was kind of like a Adolin having a rite of passage with his dad,
Yeah.
like standing up to him, like you need to do this. Like you're endangering. Like I love you, but this is endangering us. It's endangering the kingdom, and we need to quell this. We need to shift the narrative, really.
Yeah. Yeah, because yeah, they're still like trading on the Blackthorn's reputation, but they're starting to feel like he's weak, so they could like strike. Did we get did we get an age for Adolin?
Yeah, he's 25.
Okay.
Let's see. I wrote it down. No, he's Adolin is 23.
Renarin's probably like 18 or something, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think Renarin is like Kaladin's age, 19.
Dalinar is like 50 something.
Yeah, I didn't write that down because I know I think Yasna is like 36.
Yeah. Shallan's like 17 or 18, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So he's a little bit older than the rest of our young people. But yeah, it makes sense because he's like battle hardened and got some chops. I just couldn't remember exactly how old he was. But yeah, this is a cool chapter. I like Adolin. He's an interesting, fun character. I like how he's still respecting his dad, but he's like, hey, you forced me to kind of like confront you about this because you could be getting murdered by a bunch of high princes pretty soon.
Yeah. And I do like so the map room, he focuses on the map of the Shattered Plains, which they show one of the little inserts in the book is that map. And like
Yeah.
the caption on that map is a recreation of the map that's on Elokar's wall. So like if as you see it and the description of it, you're like, oh wait, no, this is the map they're talking about. Which is fun in these books, um, unlike in Wheel of Time, where like there'll be a few times there's like an insert of a map of a town. There's no like it's not an in-world map. There's no reference to it being an in-world map and people studying the map. It's just there for the reader's sake if they wanted to follow along with what was
Yeah.
where things were happening.
Yeah, we also get a really cool Shallan painting at the start of this chapter, which is weird that they didn't put it in the start of the chapter where it shows up in.
Yeah,
I don't know why they did it here. Also, like why they didn't have the map uh put that in this chapter, the recreation that you were talking about.
yeah. I don't know why they put it where
It's
they are, but
it's weird because you're like you have to remember like oh yeah I saw that Shallan Payton instead of like it being right before they mention it.
yeah.
I don't know. Who knows?
But yeah, who knows? Chapter 26, Stillness. So here we're in Dalinar's sitting room. Lidima which is one of Dalinar's scribes, is reading the Way of Kings to Dalinar. Then he starts to talk to Renarin, asking which High Prince to approach next. He's approached a couple, and they both declined. So even though he promised a shard plate, the first shard plate to Royan, Royan declined to join the joint plateau assaults. Then their conversation is interrupted by horns that were announcing the Chasm Fiend spotting. And so Dalinar just gets suited up, and literally he described someone putting on armor one piece at a time from the foot to the head.
Yeah.
And normally I'd be like, okay, this is boring. Like, but I can also see it as a montage, like an anime montage or something, where it's like tightening this and going on here and here and then here, here.
Yeah, it's very cool. I like that because this needs to be an anime where like get the anime transformation and just putting on or going into mecha suit if you like Gundam or stuff like that. All that stuff's fun.
Yeah, and then so there was, I think somebody was talking to Dalinar. So now there's a guy Teleb who's the high officer on duty. He's talking to Dalinar, and he gets permission to train one bridge crew for carrying. Like, so there was all this talk about Dalinar needing to have bridge crews, and he didn't want to let that happen. But now he's like, all right, you can train one. Then go ahead.
Oh, so I like that because it's kind of a show of Dalinar as a leader where he's like, this guy's showing initiative. I should at least reward him and let him try it, and before like just being like no. So it shows kind of how good of a leader Dalinar is with his people.
Yeah. So they're about to. So Dalinar's getting suited up because he's going to do the Chasm Fiend hunt, plateau assault. But right as he's about to leave, somebody runs up and says, "Hey, Sadeas is here, and he has a writ from the king to question the soldiers." And Dalinar's like, "Well, this is bad timing." All right, yeah, he can question them as we're running off on the plateau assault. And so Sadeas joins them on their plateau assault.
Yeah.
During the battle, Dalinar, he sickens and loses the thrill and hears the words life before death. And then eventually regains composure, wins the battle, and he sees the Parshendi shard bearer across the way at the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, this fight's really cool. I really like, and it shows how different they are from Sadeas and them. Whereas they are like the tip of the spear. They like jump the chasm and just like kill everybody while the bridges are being set up, and which is really cool because
it's like pole vaulting, right?
I think they just jump.
Well, the shard bearers can, but yeah. I'm pretty sure I read there's some that use like poles.
Those are the scouts.
Okay.
Yeah, the scouts like they pole vault. So like, I think that's how they like spot the chasm fiend. They like pole vault back. But it wouldn't be good for like large scale operations. You get murdered. But yeah, sure. Once again, shard plate. The shard bearers are super cool. It's very anime, and it's really interesting that he's like losing this thrill, and like I'm curious about your perspective on this. Do you think the thrill, because he like talks about it to like Adolin and stuff, do you think the thrill is like a Lethe like D&D like a racial ability, or is like a taught thing?
So I was thinking I was actually thinking about the void, the flame in the void in Wheel of Time. And similar to that, and because this is a reread, I don't remember details, but we do learn more about the thrill in later books.
Okay.
But yeah, it just seems like something that's taught to men to seek out and be like, this is like, I don't know if it's magical or if it's just something where it's like kind of like a meditation type thing.
Yeah, it seems to be like a some sort of state of mind you get into where it's just lust for battle and conquest and stuff like that, which is interesting because I don't we haven't seen from Kaladin's point of view him in combat because the first chapter was him with or like Dalit and then his point of view. So I don't know if Kaladin got the thrill or not. Can't guess we'll see if he ever gets in combat.
Yeah.
He definitely doesn't have it on the bridge runs.
No, no, no. The fight's cool. We learn more about the Parshendi. So this is like the first time we really learn about the Parshendi. And so like they have carapace. It's like armor like carapace. The men are bearded and they have gemstones in their beards. They sing while they are fighting, and they almost seem like almost like a hive mind style thing. Um, and so their tactics are a lot different than Alethi tactics. And so it makes it harder for the Alethi to fight them because it's like, okay, that's weird. We don't do that.
Yeah, they like fight in pairs, which is interesting. So it's not like so it's not like the lines of men like normal armies do. They and they can like jump. So like sometimes they'll jump behind the lines and like flank them and stuff, which is cool. Yeah. Yeah, the Parshendi are cool. Oh, we also learned, I don't know if we knew this before. Dalinar's shard blade is called Oathbringer, which is the name of the book. So I guess that might be something.
Oh yeah, yeah. We did that was we learned about that in chapter 13. So his Dalinar's Shardblade is Oathbringer, and the King's Shardblade is Sunraiser. We also learned Sunmaker was the nickname of the king, the last king, Alethi king, to unite the princedoms.
Do we know Adolin's shard blade's name?
No.
No, yeah, I don't remember reading that one. No, I guess we'll have to look out for it.
Where am I going? All right. Okay.
I do kind of find it funny. Like there's a bunch of stuff and like he's like kind of losing the throne stuff and then it just like cuts. It's like we won the battle. Like very matter of fact, which is kind of cool because it makes sense for like Dalinar where it's just like his POV where he's like, yeah, we won. All right, cool. I've won billions of battles before. It's not like a big deal.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the final chapter of the Dalen. Dalen. There you go. I combined them.
Yeah.
Dalinar and Adolin chapters, point of views for this section. And this one's titled Decision, and that just really refers to Dalinar's decision to abdicate to Adolin. And so they're in the war camp. They're testing the new bridges. Dalinar, this really is cool. So Dalinar is wondering why Radiance only created weapons and no enhancing gear for workmen. And this is where he grabs his warhammer, and he's still in his shard plate from the battle. He grabs his warhammer, goes out to the work yard, and starts where all the workers are digging latrines and starts smashing the rocks with his warhammer. And he'll use the shard blade at some points to uh, slice them into smaller sections and then hit them with the rock. And like for a while, the workers are just standing there, like just like watching him, like, what the hell are you doing? And I really connect with this because as a child, I had a lot of anger issues and emotion issues. And so a lot of times when I was dealing with that, my dad said, "Son, we have an axe and there's wood out back. Um, if you want, you can go swing that to your heart's content and be violent with it. I mean, obviously not hurt myself, but I go out and chop wood. And while chopping wood and doing something so like physical, like it's just cathartic.
Mm. And your mind would work out the problem.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
doing hard labor like that. Like sometimes, I mean, I hate mowing grass, but also there's times where I love it because I go out there and I just cut the grass and it's just the sound of the mower and me walking
Mm.
and I'm with my thoughts. Just,
Yeah. Yeah, it's really well written. I really like this chapter a lot. Um, and this is also the chapter where I should have put the Chasm Fiend painting in there, um, as we'll get to a little bit. But yeah, that this part of like of just Dalinar just being like, man, why don't we have like worker shard plate and all this other stuff, which is interesting. And like, yeah, I'm guessing if they didn't because they always appear when like the desolations were happening, or they didn't want to give everybody a shard plate and just have giant wars with everybody in shard plate. That would be probably bad. Also, I wonder if there's like a cost to like building the shard plate, which we'll probably learn more about the origins of shard plate in future books or maybe this book.
yeah. Yeah. So that's, yeah.
Oh, I said I do love like uh all he's like all the workers are just kind of like chilling, just like watching them work. They're like, oh, what are we supposed to do? It's very funny. Everybody just like, what is happening?
And so after he finally finishes his work, uh, we go inside. Navani, let's see. Oh yeah, no, Navani shows up and we find out Dalinar missed their meeting. Like she was supposed to read to him, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry." And then she's like, "Well, um, Yasna is ringing your span read," and he's like, "Okay, I'll go." And she's like, "Well, can I join you?" And they talk on their way back, and I this is something that I don't remember from previous reads where he tells oh sorry, he tells Yasna about his first meeting with the Parshendi with Gavilar.
Yeah.
And that was something I just skipped over. I was like, I didn't remember that. And they just met them. Um, and the Parshendi were able to learn their language in like a couple of days. It's really fast.
Yeah.
And then Shallan draws the Voidbringer, at which point Dalinar recognizes it as a Chasm Fiend. But the drawing, she drew a drawing she saw in a book, which was thousands of years old. And so I really love the way the span reads are work. Like you position things in the same spot. So like you have to have the ink well in the same spot on both sides.
Yeah.
Otherwise the pen's not going to get any ink. Um, but the pens can be use different amounts of ink uh, on on the remote side, there might be blobs that show up that didn't show up on the original one, but it's basically mirroring what the person on the other side is drawing.
Yeah, they're basically a book that's like two books that are like tethered to each other. So when something happens on one, it shows up on the other. Um, did you ever watch Fringe?
No.
It's a good show. It's kind of like X Files. It has a lot of like multiverse stuff. But anyway, they have like this typewriter where you type on it, and the other dimension, the typewriter will type itself. So it's basically a span read. But the span reads are cool. They're a way to have like fantasy email
Yeah, communicate long
and
distance.
communicate long distances, so you don't have the wheel time problem where nobody talks to each other, even though they could teleport in later books. But yeah, it's cool. I like the Shalon cameo. I like how Dollar's like, she hasn't had time for words in years. So I also like uh he tells Yasna that her mom's in the war camp, and she's like, "Careful, Uncle, she bites." That was really funny.
Yeah, and then like at the end of it, everybody leaves the room and she stays in the room with him. And he's like, well, this is inappropriate, but at least the door is open and the guards out there can see us. So I'll allow it.
Yeah, that's funny.
And that he tells her first of his decision to abdicate. And then at the end tells Adolin. One thing I did find funny here is Yasna was a Aristotelian. She'd explained it to him once. They were an order of scholars who tried to find the truth in the past. They wished to create unbiased factual accounts of what had happened in order to extrapolate what to do in the future. He wasn't clear on why they thought themselves different from conventional historians.
Yeah. No, trust me, I'm not biased. Is that a real word, or did they make that up for the book?
Aristotelian?
Yeah.
I think it's made up for the book, but it seems to have roots in Latin, like veris, because like in Harry Potter, Veritas serum is a truth serum. So
Okay. Yeah.
veritas, that the same root word is like truth.
Hmm.
Veris, Aristotelian.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a crazy word.
yeah, so that's the Dalinar Adolin section this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I like them a lot. They're fun. I think they're necessary because I feel like the first part was kind of missing stuff. It was very like low, like grunt level, like you said. Like we needed some like highborn people to like kind of fully flesh out the world. Um, and we get more shard plate and blade combat, which is always fun.
Yeah. All right, you
And
want to
yeah, well, I'll just say last thing, and we're starting to see kind of how the storylines could combine with like Shallan, like Yasna's the king's sister. So you have like Shallan's tied to Dalinar, and Dalinar knows Sadeas, which ties into Kaladin. So you can kind of see how stuff, because everything was kind of fractured in the first part. So you're kind of seeing how it could piece together to where like the story will come in.
Yes, I totally agree. I was actually thinking of that when Yasna was talking with Dalinar.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, so we'll move on to Kaladin's POVs now. Go all the way back to chapter 14, titled Payday. And so we're in the lumber yard, and Cal is trying to get the bridge crew to practice between runs, and they're just like, why would we do that? And Cal gets paid by Gaz the first payment, and he actually forces Gaz to give him the payment, and then he forces Gaz to give him his full pay, and then he gives one sphere to Gaz, making sure he knows like where it's coming from and that he has to be given it. He
Yeah.
doesn't just take it. Cal, so later on, Cal asks Syl to watch him while he sleeps. And she's like, well, do you think Gaz will actually kill you? He goes, nah, I don't. Then Cal rucks with a beam for hours. Rock bet that he used a light board while he did it. And so Rock went and picked it up later on, and it wasn't a light board. And so he lost his bet. And then also Syl is realizing she's different and is changing. So I actually found of course, this was an earlier chapter, so I forgot about it until I just got to these notes. But there's kind of a parallel between Kaladin and Dalinar here, with the last Dalinar POV and this Kaladin POV, where they both use just like exhaustive labor to clear their mind.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it legit works. It's something there. We learn more of the Bridge 4 crewman names.
Got Rock. We got Moash,
Sigzil,
Sigzil.
Dunny, Narm, Leighton, Dauber, Dabbid. Sorry, Dabbid and Hobber. And there's more.
Yeah.
That's what I listed there. So I also noticed in this chapter it had this, I think it was the second mention of Night Watcher.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll find out who the Night Watcher is, or what that has to do with anything.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be like a Woodbringer, or like at least different from a Voidbringer. So
Yeah, it seems like some type of powerful being.
yeah, which is cool. Right. Because we got humans, we got the Pershindi, we got the Spren, and then so maybe there's other like powerful magical things in this world, which is cool.
Yeah.
Nightwalker.
Yeah, there's not much going on in this chapter. I mean,
Yeah.
still, some character development for Syl here is she really fears like losing her memories, and like that is like legit real world stuff. She's like, well, if I forget who I am, or I forget the things that I've done, then that gets scary.
Yeah.
And this also ties back. I want to know why Syl had left Kaladin. Like, what did she go do when she left him earlier?
Well, we know
Oh,
one thing she did.
Yeah, she gathered the leaves.
Yeah, but she also leaves periodically. I don't know what she does then.
Yeah.
Maybe she still feels the call of the wind and just goes flying around.
Yeah, I mean, she is a windspren, so.
Yeah.
One other thing, Kaladin says, authority doesn't come from rank; it comes from the men that give it to you, which is very true.
Yeah.
And that's why I can harken that back to Elokar not being respected enough. Like Dalinar, like, hey, you need to do something. These people aren't like respecting, aren't trusting you. Just because your name is the king doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't have anything else on this chapter. So if you want to move on to
No, it's a lot of Kaladin's chapters this week are kind of more character building, less like plot or stuff happening.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, and you get to learn more about the Bridge 4 people, which they'll become important. You learn that Rock is like a horn eater, so like he's from a different country. which is interesting. I like learning about all the different like civilizations and customs and culture of all these different uh places in Roshar. It really like fleshes out the world and like makes it really interesting because you
Yeah,
get a
we've
lot
had
of like Alethi perspectives in this book, so it's cool seeing other people.
yeah. I mean, there's like Shin, Unkalaki, or Horn Eaters, if you will.
Yeah.
We get some interesting story from Rock later on. So
Yeah.
yeah. So chapter 16, Cocoons. It's another flashback episode with Kaladin. We're going back 7.5 years. So this is prior to Gavilar.
Yeah. Is this the first flashback of the book?
Mm,
Did we have one last week? I can't remember.
I think we had one last week. Yeah, we had to have had one last week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, let's see here.
We get a bunch of them this week, though.
Yeah, the one with the surgeon.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're going back 7.5 years, and they're in a grain field in Hearthstone. And so his dad wants to send him to Carbrunt to study to become a surgeon. He's out there with Laurel, which is Wistial's daughter, and Wistial is the city lord for Hearthstone, where they live. And so Laurel is Kaladin's, like, they're friends, but they want to become like more. They
Yeah.
feel love for each other. But it's kind of a taboo because he's a dark eye and she's a light eye, but they're almost like they're right at that fault line between light and dark eyes.
Yeah. I think they're actually like almost promised to each other, kind of like Egwene and Rand.
Yeah.
Um,
And so
I think this is
his
also
brother's
where
out there.
you. Is this the first time we hear that if you win a shard blade, you become a light eye?
Yes. And that's it's not like it's not proven. People don't know.
Yeah.
Or at least the characters we're seeing that are talking about it don't know for sure. Like Laurel tells Kaladin that.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, if you win a shard plate, it'll make you a light eyes. And he's like, really? And so Kaladin's brother is there too, Tien. And so they're walking around in a grain field, and he's collecting cocoons. Luther is not. Autocorrect got me here, so I don't know what this creature is.
Let me.
There's cocoons, and he pours water on it, and it comes out and moves around, and then he gets it to settle down on a small rock,
Yeah.
and he gives it to his brother. Is it tubers? Lubers? Not luber.
Um,
But it's the worms in the field. No, it's not. No, these aren't
No.
the worms in the
they're
field.
little like crabs, basically. That
Yeah.
they like hide and they come out when there's water to like eat and drink and stuff. And then when there's no water, they go back into their shells and kind of. But they're like little rocks almost. They're pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And they attach themselves to like.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets it to come out and moves around, and then he gets it to settle on a rock, and he gives it to his little brother, and his little brother's like, I'm gonna pour water on it and it'll come out again. And he goes, no, 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 it's tired. It's not going to do it yet.
It's called a lurg.
A lurg. There you go.
Just found it.
I don't know why it got changed to Luther. Yeah, so the other boys are supposed to be deworming the fields. And so there was a whole description about the worms and how they destroyed the field. So he goes out there, and the boys that work the fields feel kind of like Kaladin's like a goody two shoes because his dad's the surgeon, and he's gonna be learning how to do the surgery stuff, and he doesn't have to worm the field. So one of them provokes him into a fight, and he loses and is embarrassed. Or Kaladin loses and is
Yeah.
embarrassed.
He realizes that he can't actually hurt people. Because like I think he like could have hit him, but like doesn't, right? And gets his ass kicked.
I don't know if that's here yet, because he
Oh.
asked to be taught to use the staff. If that's the case here, I missed over it. But I mean, it could very well be.
Yeah, it is. You want me to read it to you?
Yeah.
I can be like a light-eyed woman and read a book.
Oh, nice. Yes, please.
Jost grunted, stumbling again, and Cal brought his weapon back around, preparing to smash Jost's face. He raised his staff, but then froze. Jost was bleeding from the hand that Cal had hit. Just a little bit of his blood. He had hurt somebody. Then Jost kind of beats him up. So yeah, he like could have hit him, but it's like, oh my god, I hurt somebody. Because I'm a
They didn't hit him
surgeon.
again.
Yeah, he didn't hit him again.
Gotcha. Yeah. So did Laurel leave because she? I may be misremembering. I thought Laurel left because she because Kaladin couldn't fight.
I think so. Yeah, she's like, all right.
And then Kaladin becomes sad again. And then at the end, Kaladin's dad comes home with news that Bright Lord Wistial is dead.
Yeah.
So Laurel's dad is dead. We get some cool names of some cities. Ral Alorum, which is called the City of Shadows. And Kurth is the City of Lightning. I mean, that sound pretty badass.
Yeah.
City of Bells, we got the City of Shadows, we got City of Lightning.
Man.
So
I haven't looked up at the map. Are those on the map? Do you know?
I do not know.
I'll look at that up later. But
Yeah.
also at the end we get that the city lord who died left Cal and his father some money.
I missed that.
Yeah. He left these to us, basically a bunch of spheres to pay for his college, pay his surgeon school.
Okay. So that Kaladin could learn. And we already knew that his dad did not charge for his services.
And basically his father's like, you're gonna go to Carbranth when you're 16. Like,
and he's like, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah. And then we're like, no, you're not, because we know what happened to you.
Yeah. So we'll move back to present day Kaladin. I really don't have much more to say about that. I mean,
yeah, no, it was good.
It'll come back up, like the Wistial stuff comes back up.
Yeah, like I said, for the flashbacks, they're like fine. I think there's too many of them, but they serve their purpose and they're fun.
Yeah.
But I think you could probably have like 3/4 of the chapters and still get the rest across. A lot of them are kind of like not a lot happens in them.
Yeah. So a bloody red sunset. We're back to the Shattered Plains. Kaladin. It starts off with Kaladin goes and visits an apothecary. He wants to get bandages, lister oil, or knobweed sap, which both of those were antiseptics. Needle and gut. And instead, the apothecary offers him lermic mucus instead because the price of the knobweed is so expensive.
Yeah.
I don't think he took the lermic mucus. I don't think Thomas bought it. He's like, this is like snake oil, maybe.
Yeah, I do like how like
the apothecary is like a snake oil salesman until Kaladin's like, no, I actually know what I'm talking about. He's like, isn't he like, young Bridgman, do you need a love potion? And Kaladin's like, no, I'm actually smart.
Didn't he go, maybe I should give this to Gaz or something like that?
Yeah, I think Syl says that.
And so then he goes back with just bandages and a needle. And during the bridge run, whenever they do put the bridge down and the army is crossing over, he decides to stand instead of sit and rest like all the others. And then he gets some jeers. Excuse me. He gets some jeers from the army men as they're passing by. They're like, "Oh, you think you think you're more than a bridgeman? You think you'll be like us?" And blah 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 blah. But some of them do like acknowledge him, like, "Hey, thanks for whatever."
Yeah.
And of course, all the other bridgemen are like, "Oh, you think you're better than us? What the hell are you doing?" They think he's stupid, really.
Yeah.
Uh, He does see Sadius during one of the crossings. And of course, here's where he starts to win over the other bridge crews. Not bridge crews, but members of Bridge 4.
Yeah.
And so in the final run of this chasm, he takes Rock's spot. So Rock was up in the front and he goes and says, "Hey, I'm going to take this. You can have mine at the back." He's like, "Why would you do that? Like you're bridge leader. You get the back." He goes, "Yeah, I'm bridge leader. I'm doing this." And all of the arrows missed Cal, but all the other 4 in the front died.
Yep. Very
Yeah.
reminiscent of the first bridge run he did.
Yes. And so Rock points out that, "Hey, look," or Kaladin was like, "It was luck," and Rock's like, "No, something is different because look where all the arrows landed, and like on the bridge, all around the handles and everything where Kaladin was, all of the arrows hit there."
Yeah. And also we learned that Rock can see Syl.
Yes, apparently his people can see Spren,
Yeah.
whether or not they choose to let them see them.
Yeah. Which is interesting because they have less air. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yes, like the Horn Eaters are interesting people. I hope we go there in one of the books.
Yeah, it'd be nice to go see there.
Yeah, I think-
So
Yeah.
after the bridge run, there's some wounded, and Kaladin. It's during the battle, and Kaladin's trying to pull them to safety. He brings Haber, Gadol, and Dabid, and Rock actually helps to drag some of them, and then the rest of them kind of start to help a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he's basically it's a lot of him showing that he like you have to lead by example and like getting other people to kind of follow him. He leads from the front. So he saves Rock's life doing that. And he starts using his surgeon's tools to save who he can. Because it's really messed up because Sadius and his army just leave injured bridgemen to die. It's like they don't care enough. There must be like so many slaves come into the Shattered Plains to fill up 12 or I guess 11 war camps worth of bridgemen. Like the churn rate must be insane.
yeah, and it's cheaper to just replace the bridgemen than to try to keep them alive.
Yeah.
But afterwards, like,
Which you wouldn't, I don't know. It's weird because you wouldn't think that because the Shattered Plains is so remote that because what I can't remember. Like there was an Emerald Braum for Kaladin, right? Forget what he sold
Yeah.
for. I don't know.
Yeah. I think 1.25.
I mean, I guess they're making so much money off the gym hearts that they can just afford to buy a bunch of slaves.
Yeah.
But,
Kaladin wants to bring the injured ones back, but Gaz is like, no, we don't do that. And so he's like, I'll give you an extra sphere. And so he pulls out the sphere that was uh glowing prior to the bridge run, which when he pulls it out to pay Gaz, it's done now.
it's dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. I was about to do that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you still have to wait a while before he puts 2 and 2 together of, hey, I might be magic.
Yeah.
Because Kaladin is not the brightest. I have a magical talking fairy who seems way different from all the other friends I've ever met, and I somehow don't die, and I can these spheres go done, but I just won't put that together for another couple hundred pages.
Yeah.
It's funny, but
I mean, he just hasn't been left out in the high storms yet.
yeah,
He's still done.
he is still done.
He's a Dunny Bridgman. He's a Dun Bridgman. Which is funny, there is a Bridgman named Dunny.
Oh yeah, it's true.
But yeah, this chapter really shows how brutal the bridge runs are for the bridge crews. And like you said, Kaladin leads from the front, how he does that and how he wants to save others.
Yeah.
And he's trying to make Bridge 4 a thing. Or he's trying to make it happen. Almost like trying to make fetch happen in Mean Girls.
Yeah.
But we'll see if he is more successful. Chapter 20. Scarlet. It's another flashback. So 7 years ago. It's now been half a month. Or not half a month, half a year. So I found the thing I sent you, the interactive map, it tells you all about the calendar. So in world, we haven't read how the calendar is set up, but I think there's 40 days. No, there's 50 days in each month. And how many was it? Yeah. There's 50 days in each month. Each week has 5 days. Each day is 20 hours.
Sure.
But anyway, yeah. So we got half a year has gone by. Kaladin is trying to save a girl. Her name is Miasol. He fails. She dies. Kaladin's dad tells him he did a good job not to freeze in panic with the situation, and he has to learn when to care.
Yeah.
Because he's too emotional. He's like, oh no, I lost her and all this stuff, and I can't do this anymore. Oh my God, I'm going to lose so many people.
Yeah. Your dad's like, if you want to do this job, you're going to have to grow some calluses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Cal, I think he even says in the previous chapter, like he hasn't learned the lesson yet. He still cares. Like all the deaths still hurt him.
Yeah. And Hearthstone still hasn't gotten a new city lord. It's been 2 months since Wistial died.
Yep.
That's that chapter.
Yep.
That's
very,
it.
Very short one.
Very, very, very short. And next one is Why Men Lie, chapter 21. So we got Bridge 4. They're in the lumber yard. Kaladin is checking on the wounded. Hobber thanks him for saving him, which is, the first kind of real. Actually, no, the second. That's the second bridgeman that has thanked Kaladin. So the first one was Rock. He's like, thank you for. You saved my life for this.
Yeah.
And now he saved Hobber's life. And he goes and grabs a log and starts his jog. and Syl comes and sits. She goes and sits on the end of the log that he's carrying and starts talking to him, uh, and asks why men lie. So the name of the chapter.
Yeah.
And he responds with all men do, and they only remember the good and the bad. So the man who doesn't lie is mad. It's like she comes to the conclusion that if all men lie, then wouldn't the man that doesn't lie be the madman?
Yeah.
She's like, what makes a man mad? Well, all the others that say he's mad, they agree on it because he's different than them.
Yeah.
Gaz comes by and tells that Sadeas has ordered that no food is to be or pay is to be had for injured bridgemen that can't do work, and so he's trying to figure out how to feed 3 or 4 injured.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
And so Rock is the only one that decides to split his food, and he's only going to do it with Haber because that's the one he thinks has the only chance of surviving.
Yeah.
Which is still not good enough, but it's better than Kaladin splitting his food amongst everybody.
Yeah, it would be untenable for him to do that.
Yeah, he'd be too weak, and the others, it would take so long for them to get back to health. It would be pointless.
Yeah.
And at this point, Kaladin devises his plan to gather reeds while on rock gathering duty. And he gets so he actually goes to Gaz, and they're supposed to have like an evening off, and they're supposed to like do pot duty after dinner.
Yeah.
Dishes. And so he goes and says, hey, look, we want to, I want to take the rock gathering duty this afternoon. And he's like, why would you want to do this? Like, look, all the other bridge crews hate us. Just let us do this thing. He's like, okay, sure, whatever. And then Kaladin and Rock recruit Teft into
To help
into
them find the knobweed reeds for the medicine.
And I really felt like the chapter was kind of slow.
Yeah.
But there's like so much character growth. At least exposing that character growth to the reader.
Yeah. Like it's all important stuff. It's just not like exciting stuff. It's more just like, yeah, they talked and they're becoming more friends, and he's gonna make some money with some apothecary materials.
Yeah. He's definitely going to go back and sell it to
Yeah, like the plot of the Kaladin stuff is like very much like a sentence, but like it's important. It's a lot of character growth, a lot of like learning about Bridge 4 and stuff. So you have like Dalinar stuff, which is more like big picture things, and then you have like Kaladin stuff, which is like tiny, like 4 people problems, which is fun.
Yeah, it's a good like contrasting dynamic.
Yeah, it's just not the most stuff to talk about. It's like, yeah, they talked and became a little bit more friendly.
Yeah,
it's kind of heaven.
So chapter 23, mini uses. So this is them collecting the rocks near the war camp. So Rock Teft and Kaladin collect the knob weed on the rock duty. Kaladin thinks that Horn Eaters worship the Spren, and this is where he finds out that he can see her, right?
Yeah.
And Syl, and that's because Syl helps them find the knobweed easily. Somehow she is able to see where it's at.
Yeah.
And without her, they probably would have only collected like a third or a quarter of what they did.
Yeah, she can also like fly super fast, so she's able to like zip around like a a flyer or something, and just be like, "Yeah, right here, right here, right here." So yeah, she's very helpful.
Yeah, good old her.
Good old little fairy lady.
They
I like Syl a lot.
I like her a lot too.
She's much needed levity in this like super depressing storyline.
Oh yeah, and we'll see more of that later. They attach the reeds to the underside of the wagon because everything's like searched when coming back into the camp. And then at night they sneak into the wagon yard to retrieve the reeds. Then they get somebody goes and finds empty glass bottles.
I think it's Kaladin.
Somebody brings them to Kaladin.
Yeah.
And I forget who he had go do it. But anyway, they ended up squeezing the sap and the milk out, and you get about 2 drops per reed, they said. And then they toss the empty reeds into the chasm. And then this is where we get kind of Rock's story about how he ended up at Bridge 4.
Yeah.
Which I think is funny because he says, okay, they have light eyes that aren't light eyes, and he's like, we have light eyes, but they don't have light eyes. And Callan is like, how do you do that? He goes, well, you have a light eye, but they have dark eyes. It's like, come on, follow
Yeah.
along with me. So they call him New Atoma. And so the New Atoma came and challenged Sadeas to a duel so he could bring a shard to their people, as their nation has 0 shards. They believe, the Unkalaki believe that if they win a shard, the person who wins the shard would become their first king for their people. The New Atoma lost, and so Rock became a slave for Sadeas.
Yeah. Not a good system.
No. But Rock is a cook. And so he was cooking for Sadeas and decided to put chol dung in the only meal he ever served to Sadeas, and which brought him to Bridge 4.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Yes, the whole stuff like too much air and all that stuff. It's fun.
Air sick lowlander.
Yeah.
You got too much sickness. Yeah, my only thoughts on this that I wrote is I love Rock.
Yeah. Rock is also a good like levity or like stuff for this kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because Cal's stuff is very like he's like depressed a lot of the time and like all this other stuff. So like you get Syl and you get Rock to kind of break it up, which is nice.
Yeah, I like bringing more people in.
Yeah.
World information we got is so Roshar has 3 moons. There's Salus, Nomun, and Misham, and again, palindromes.
Yeah.
Chapter 25, The Butcher.
We get a well, let me kind of ring it. We get a little bit of like Cal open up about his past at the very end of the book, or in the end of the chapter, where he's like, "I killed a man." And he's like, "Oh," because they're like trying to talk about their past, trying to get, but he's still being a little.
So he was trying to get Teft to open up, right?
Yeah.
And Teft wasn't, and then he was like, "Well, I killed a man," and it was like the end of the chapter, right?
Yeah, basically. So it's just more kind of like, something happened between chapter 1 and the slave, and we're getting little tidbits, but not too much of it.
Well, you can't give all of it away right away.
True. Yeah, it's a fun chapter. They're basically still more kind of getting to know each other, becoming friends, and Bridge 4 might be bonding.
Maybe a little bit. So the butcher, another flashback 7 years ago. We've got it's in Hearthstone again. Kaladin overhears people talking about his dad being a failure and a thief.
Yeah.
I think he stole all of the spheres from Wistial.
Yeah.
Cal's mom defends him and explains how they'll always think that he's useful. As far as his dad, yeah, his dad's always going to be useful because he's a surgeon, and they're not going to, like, the townsfolk are not going to harm him because they need him, because nobody else understands how to save lives, even if he does fail to save
Yeah.
some people's lives. Cal's mom sort of admits to wanting him to marry Laurel, the High Lord's, the City Lord's daughter. And then a new City Lord shows up. Dun dun dun.
Bright Lord Roshone.
Yes. We will see how different he is from Bright Lord Wistial.
Yep.
Yeah, there's really not much. Like, I feel like I'm trying to force us to talk about something in this chapter.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not.
just trying to figure.
There's not a whole lot. It does like this kind of rural town, and even like Roshone is like, oh, you're the one that let the Bright Lord die and stuff like that. So like there is a very much like superstitions about this surgeons, which is kind of interesting. They don't really understand medicine, which I get. Like if you know you're a peasant and you have this guy that like cuts into people and then sometimes they still die, you'd probably be a little wary of them.
Especially if you don't understand it. It's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
magic stuff. Sometimes they save us, sometimes they just die.
Yeah.
But I like to try to figure out what the chapter titles refer to. Sometimes they're harder to figure out than others. But this one was a one that wasn't super obvious. You know, like the next chapter that we cover is Chasm Duty, and that's very obvious.
Yeah.
The butcher here, so there's a game called Breakneck, which consists of a pair and a trio. So the throw, called the butcher, consists of a pair and a trio. A tower is three pairs and loses. A queen is two trios and wins. The butcher could either be a win or a loss.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, in their world, so Vorinism, like, it's against the religion to try to predict the future.
Yeah.
And so gambling is a weird thing because they still play games like Breakneck, which is gambling, but they don't predict the future. They don't try to predict who wins. It's
Yeah.
a weird distinction.
Yeah, that's just because of the bureaucracy and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean it makes it's fun. I like how that's why like the prophecies and stuff are very like taboo. That's why Dalinar is getting side eyes as well, because like his visions, well supposedly the past speak of like prophecy, which is predicting the future, which is taboo.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, just like, it's brought up so often, but it's so easy to pass over in the books, that like predicting the future is against the the religion.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's because of the bureaucracy, but
Oh,
we don't know.
yes.
We don't know about that yet.
It
Too
is
much.
is definitely because of the bureaucracy.
Which I guess we could just say what it is if you really want to. It's not like it's a spoiler or anything.
Is that, did we find that out in the next reading part?
Maybe.
Or because I remember,
I think they might have mentioned some of it with like the Ardent when she meets Caspel and stuff.
yeah. So like the Herocracy is whenever, or maybe I feel like I read this already. But the Herocracy basically is when the members of the church decided that the people didn't know enough, right?
Yeah, it's basically like the church tried to take over, like become a theocracy, but the hierarchy was when they became a theocracy. So like they were like basically trying to become in charge. That's like why the Ardents can't like hold property and stuff because like they once tried to basically rule the world and like force people to um believe in certain things like the devotees and all that stuff. So it's really important for like shaping the world with like how the ardents work and stuff like that, and like how the you can't like prophecies and stuff. Um, it's interesting. It's cool.
Yeah,
It's not,
I liked
it
it.
doesn't really like it. I don't think it's really plot relevant for anything really in this book. It's just more cool world building stuff.
Yeah, things that show up and you're like, oh, this is why people do these certain things.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we've made it to the final Kaladin chapter, Chasm Duty. This is by far the most interesting of his
Yeah.
chapters. So they go to, well, first, Kaladin goes to the apothecary and to sell the knobweed sap. And he's like, oh, I'll give you this. And Kaladin's like, wait, you said it was expensive. And he goes, well, you got the wild stuff. It's not as potent, so it's not going to cost as much. And all that leads to Kaladin figuring out that he's been collecting it himself and he didn't want him to know.
Yeah, and they're jacking up the price for the High Lords.
Yeah.
They're like, it's so expensive, it's so hard to get, but then yeah, it grows like right next to them.
Yeah. So he comes to an agreement that he'll sell it to the apothecary for a certain amount. He gets one sky mark
Yeah,
per
yeah, I like it because the apothecary is like, well, you could tell the High Lords, and then you're just like, making the High Lords save money. If you
or
really
you
want to
can
do,
take the money from the High Lords. He goes,
yeah,
oh.
yeah,
So yeah. Uh basically one sky mark is half a month's wage for Kaladin. So he's like making a lot um off of it. And then I wrote here, sorry. I wrote here, Kaladin considers running again, but feels he has to protect the bridgeman. Like, was he gonna run in the yard? Yeah,
I
he was gonna do his jogging,
hmm,
but he had to. Why? Why did I write that? That
I don't
doesn't make
know.
sense to me. Sometimes my notes don't make sense to me, but hey,
Uh,
whatever.
yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I'll look at my notes after D&D, and I'll be like, what does any of this mean?
Like, it made sense when I wrote it, and
Yeah,
I thought future me would get it, but future me is not as bright as I gave
yeah,
credit to. Maybe I should subscribe to the Vornism beliefs and not try to predict the future.
yeah. You should.
So anyway, Gaz,
Uh, um, so I just kind of looked it up. He's like, maybe I could run away by myself. But then he's like, um,
oh
what's the point? Like, I'll just probably get captured or whatever. But like, I could stay here and try to like save Bridge 4, basically. So he
okay,
like
yeah,
basically
that makes sense.
comes to the decision not to run alone.
Yeah, so not run away.
Yeah. Yep.
Then Gaz comes in, and they were supposed to have um, some other duty, but Gaz is like, "Hey, y'all get Bridge 4 chasm duty," and Kaladin finds out that one of the other bridge crews bribed Gaz to give them the duty. And so they go into chasm duty, which is basically collecting. They climb down into the chasms. They collect equipment and things from the corpses in the chasm. They're searched, body searched on the way out, so that they don't save anything for themselves. Then we have Dunny joins the trio, and he sings for them. And so like that's his special skill. So we're team building here. Yeah, it's team building with Kaladin, Teft, and Rock.
Yeah.
And Kaladin just notices changes in everybody's personality.
Yeah,
Khaled-
people are starting to come out of their shells,
Yeah.
which is nice.
And during this time, Kaladin lets slip that he tried challenging a shard bearer once. Because Teft said something about like, hey, if you fight a shard bearer and then you'll win the plate and become a light eye.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I already tried that. It didn't work. Everybody's
Yeah.
like, what? What the hell are you talking about?
Like, you're crazy, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bodies of the fallen light eyes would be recovered from the chasms and soul cast into statues, which is weird.
Yeah. It's cool. I guess, yeah. I mean, if you're that rich, yeah, you want like your ancestors to be preserved. Yeah, the chasm duty is really cool. It's very atmospheric, with all the bodies, and it's also interesting world building because the high storms come from a certain direction always, so they'll push the dead bodies that are left on the battlefield because the Alethi don't bother bringing back their corpses, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, they get
I don't-
blown off of the plateaus and into the
Yeah.
chasms.
I don't know why they don't. I mean, obviously, when you lose the battle, yeah, but when they win the battle, the Parshendi retreat. I don't know why they wouldn't bring back their dead in the battles they win. Seems weird.
Yeah. Seems
Maybe they do, and it's just the battles that they lose that they're forced to like retreat without having their dead.
maybe so.
Yeah, because I can't imagine they don't bring back the dead in the battles.
But also I mean, that's a lot of work too, and depending on if there's a high storm coming,
True.
because you gotta have all of the bridges going back to, you gotta carry them, you gotta carry all the dead across the bridges and all this stuff.
Yeah. I don't know.
And it's not like, excuse me, it's not like they leave a bridge over every chasm and you can just like walk. You gotta cross to one plateau, move the bridge, cross, move the bridge, cross.
Yeah, but you would bring like, I don't know, wagons or something to transport them.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. So
Or maybe their culture doesn't really care that much about like burials or
the dead. I mean, they soul cast bodies into statues.
True, so they care a little bit.
But yeah, Kaladin starts reminiscing about his time in Amaram's army. Talks about feeling a little while killing, not being emotionless, all while holding the spear. So he pulls a spear off of a body and he's like reminiscing about it, and talks about the feeling he did when he was killing and not being too emotionless, because like if he's emotionless, then it's just a real danger of like, oh, I'll just kill everybody.
Yeah.
There's no filter there. And then Moash and Sigzil start making fun of him, like, oh, you think you're an army man and like all this stuff, you know about all this. And then he goes into a trance and does a kata, and then like forgetting that they were all in a chasm and that there are others there, and that when he comes out of the trance, like Moash just drops everything he's holding. Is like, what was that?
Yeah, he basically shows that he's like a prodigy with the spear. And everybody's like, "Holy shit, the hell has just happened? Who are you?" Basically,
Yeah, it's like,
uh,
oh my God,
it's
you were
funny.
here you knew all that? Like, how did you end up here? If you know all this, how did you end up here?
Yeah,
And it's worth noting, Drahe, another another bridgeman, stood up for Kaladin whenever Moash and Sigil started making fun of him.
yeah, definitely starting to win over the respect of the bridge crew.
Yeah, and he's gonna win over more at the end of this chapter.
Yeah, I do like you get a little bit more rock stuff where like he's like, "This is how duels are settled in the Hornlands," and he's like, by a drinking contest," and it's like. And they're like, "How is that a duel?" It's like, well, at the end of it, everybody's too drunk to remember what they were arguing about. So that's how we settle conflicts. Which I'm like, that we should just start doing that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's better than fighting a war.
yeah, might kill everybody's livers, but it won't kill your actual body.
Yeah. They find the excuse me. They find Pershindi bodies, and this kind of ties in thematically with the last chapter in the Dalinar point of views, um, where we learned that they have carapaces and they are totally different than just the regular Alethi humans.
Yeah, they're not human.
And he's looking at one of the knives, and it's full of runes and images on it. So they're like, wait, they have language? And it's like they're no longer, to Kaladin and them, they're no longer as barbaric.
Yeah,
And so there's a dehumanization of the Parshindi happening,
yeah,
or rehumanization, if you will.
yeah, and it's also more shocking to them that they have language and stuff because they have the Parshmen that are just like kind of like seemingly non-intelligent, kind of just like almost like pack animals like horses and stuff to them, but in humanoid form. So it's like, oh, like these people have like language and you know, so you get more differences between the Parshindi and the Parshmen.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Parshmen are interesting. They're always in the background.
They literally are in the background because like we haven't met one in person yet. We've just heard them talk about the Parshmen.
Yeah.
And so after Chasm Duty, we have let's see. The Parshindi knife, there was a figure at the center of the hilt, nicely carved. It was a man in fine armor, shard plate certainly. A symbol was etched behind him, surrounding him, spreading out from his back like wings. Like, it's pretty badass. And he just completely shatters Kaladin's understanding of him.
Yeah, that's a Radiant, right? Or Herald? Don't they say like, oh, that's a Herald?
I don't remember.
I think
might be Radiant. Because I don't think any of the heralds. I think all the heralds are human.
Well, yeah, from what I got is like they either worship the heralds or like they found these knives and stuff. Like they found like a cache of weapons, so they didn't actually smelt them themselves. Yeah.
Oh.
Pretty sure it's like a herald or a radiant, either one.
Probably.
Yeah.
It tracks.
Yeah.
So after chasm duty, they're hanging out in the lumber yard, and Cal decides to treat the crew by buying foods for Rock to cook a stew in the camp. And it definitely works and wins over a lot more of the crew. Gaz is just disgusted. He's like, why are you trying to do this? And then we've got Moash, Sigzil, Narm, and just a couple of others. They're still holding out on opening up and joining Kaladin and his bridge crew.
Yeah. Yeah, the ways to people's hearts is a good meal. So
Yeah. And that works, and a couple more people join Kaladin with picking up a beam, a board, and running and jogging through the lumberyard.
and do some weight training. They're gonna get buff.
Yeah, let's get buff.
I like how horn eaters like use the shell, like they eat shells. At least apparently. Actually, they do. He Rock confirms it. So like it'd be like they just eat the crawfish whole, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, and somebody mentioned that there's like he's afraid that there were going to be shells. They made a joke. It's like, hey, watch out! There's probably shells in here. And Rock's like, no, I followed the recipe that Kaladin gave me.
Yeah.
You're safe. No chol dung.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to eat just a giant like crab shell. That would not be good. Their teeth and jaws must be pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I guess there'd be chols and stuff in the mountains. Yeah. Mountain chols.
Mountain chols.
Or if they jump like mountain goats.
And I liked this quote from Kaladin. He's talking to himself at the end. He says, come on, Kaladin. Thought, remember why we live. Remember warmth. Remember good food. Remember friends and song and evenings spent around the hearth. You aren't dead yet, storm you, if you don't come out. And he was thinking that about all the other bridgemen. He's like, come on, remember these good things and come on out and join in, and
Yeah.
we'll survive.
Yeah. Because just like all the crew bridgemen are really beaten down. So yeah. It's very sad, but things are turning around for good old Bridge 4. They got money, they got antiseptic, they got Kaladin as their leader.
They got Rock cooking them good food.
Yeah. It's a good little part for Bridge 4.
Yeah.
Nothing too bad happened to him this part.
Nope. And we'll move on to the interludes. These are fun.
Yeah.
So the first interlude is point of view of Risen, who's a Thalen merchant apprentice.
Yeah.
And she's apprenticed to Vistem, who's known as her Bapsk. Technically, it says technically is her father and master. And they're meeting Thresh San Isan, who's a Shen. And they are in Shinovar. And so Risen arrives in Shinovar with a new long-range alert Faberil.
Yeah, they got radar.
Yeah, it alerts that Thresh San Isan has arrived. And they give Soulcast metal to Thresh, and he gives chicken's cloth and exotic meats. So 7 years ago, Thresh traded with Vistem and gave him Seth. So Stem was a former master of Seth.
Yeah.
And then Vistem sold him to the Parshendi or whoever the master was with the Parshendi.
Yeah. Or yeah.
So a little uncovering of Seth and the
Yeah,
assassin.
you get more Shinovar stuff. Basically, it seems like uh Shinovar is like regular Earth because they have like grass that is grass and like chickens and stuff. So it's really interesting. It's like on the other side of the world, so like the high storms aren't really a thing because they like die out. Um, and get to learn more. You just still don't know what Truthless is, which is unfortunate. But you learn that like the farmers are like the highest form of in their society, where like the warriors and stuff are like the lowest. So, which is
Did you
interesting.
did you ever get a feeling that Risen or Vistem were not indigenous to Roshar? Or
Uh, Risen definitely is. I don't know about Wisdom. You don't. I mean, you don't really get anything from his perspective. I didn't. I still think he's native to Roshar.
I think they are too. And my other question here is, do you think that the soul cast, so the medals they give, they're soul cast medals.
Hmm.
Do you think there's a connection with Mistborn?
Hmm. I don't know. As they said, like there's no sprint in them, right? Is that what they?
They were definitely weird medals.
Yeah. 'Cause they like soulcasted trash to do stuff. Um. Yeah, they want to. There's. I didn't get the Mistborn connection because I don't think they.
I don't know if it is, but
Yeah.
anytime, like especially now where I'm trying to find my
I
connection.
mean
Cosplayer.
the interludes would be a thing, but I don't think the Shin are from Mistborn. I took it as a weird thing to where like
The Shin are not from Mistborn,
yeah,
but
and I
just
knew
the
that. I knew that. Um, I took it as like if in the prologue he was like, I can't walk on stone. So like I took it like they needed like soul casted metals to where like it wouldn't be like blasphemous to use them. Because it even says like it could be forged. So like it's for some reason like trash that's turned into a thing is like not the thing, so you can use it, I guess. Because like yeah, we really need more like information about the Shin because they seem really weird. Like it seems like they could, since they have so much weird beliefs that don't seem to be congruous with the rest of Roshar, and like they have like chickens and stuff. They could like their entire race could be from another world that they like brought chickens and like grass and stuff to there, and like they have horses. But I for the most part, I kind of feel like they're natives, and they're just kind of it was kind of like a cool little like window into like the Shin, and you also get the little Easter egg of where Seth came from.
yeah. And so Risen and Vistem, they are Thalen.
Yeah.
But yeah, and speaking of walking on stone, we'll get to something I wanted to point out in the third interlude in this section, but we can move on to Axes the Collector.
Yeah.
And this this one's so freaking cool. And I was actually thinking that would be a fun and easy thing to cosplay. You just paint your nails blue, put blue contacts in, wear a towel, and just have like writing things all over your body.
Yeah.
So whatever the hell an Amian is, that's what Axes is.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and there's like a drunk beggar. And apparently Axes is naked, and the drunk beggar, he's made a town type thing with potatoes and stuff, and
Yeah,
Axes
it's
apparently
very weird.
it is, and like apparently Axes was drunk and fell on top of it, and so the guy's like, "You destroyed my city," and all this stuff, and
Yeah. Yeah, Axes is like a shapeshifter, and uh I'm guessing he's like a god, like a shard bearer. That's my assumption because it seems like he's like immortal.
he's definitely a scholar that's trying to find out more about Spren.
Yeah,
Um, and he uses his skin so they can change the color of their skin at any time, and their shadow is cast in the opposite direction that it should be.
yeah,
So it's cast in the direction of the light, not away from the light. But they said most people don't notice that. So he makes notes on his skin, and I don't think he actually sits there and writes. I think he just makes his skin
yeah.
do that.
He can like shapeshift, so he just shapeshifts his skin into like
The different colors and the
he
writing.
mementos himself.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah.
And I like the part where he said, "Yeah, there was a time where I wrote something where, my bath attendants were like, what the hell?"
He had to like angle the mirror to be able to read when he said.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
he wrote it inside of his butt cheeks.
Yeah, he was testing to see if he could find intoxication spread. So he just got really drunk.
And he apparently did find them.
Yeah.
And then he goes to, all right, so it's a city in Erie, Cassator, and it's second in size to Raul Alorum, which is the city of shadows, which we learned from earlier.
Yeah.
And they are all standing and looking at the water, and this gigantic 100-foot tall spren comes out of the water.
Yeah.
And they named it Kusakish, and it's a rare type of spren that only has one member of it.
Yeah.
And so he observes it, he writes it down, and then somebody steals his towel, and he's naked and gets arrested for indecent exposure and goes to jail.
Yeah. Kind of a cool little short story. I have no idea what it matters to the larger plot or like world building. He is so alien that I assume he's an alien. Maybe he's not an alien. I don't know.
I don't think he's from Broshar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's cool.
And
But, like,
then yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was a fun chapter to read.
yeah, it's really cool. I really like they're kind of setting up that there's like unique sprint in the world that like because so far we've only really seen like like rot sprint and like fire sprint and like wind sprint. So like very much elemental type stuff or like a disease sprint like things that but like this thing is just like what the hell is that sprint? Like you're just like, oh, there's like weird aliens. Maybe it's like Syl or so like it gives you lots of like a lot to think about of the world where like they're not just like um, they're not kind of just like natural things. Like maybe there's some like larger, maybe they're like actually aliens or like there's just a whole bunch of things you can think about, and this kind of like lets you imagine a lot of stuff for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what this thing is. It's really cool though.
It is really cool. All right, last chapter. A
Yeah.
work of art. And yes, Seth is a work of art. So
Yep.
Seth's point of view, he's in Bournewater, a town in Badlands. He is mastered to Macaque, who we saw in the last interlude with Seth. He had killed his master, took the oath stone, and since then has killed the other people that were there with him. He's using him as like an enforcer. He's set up Macaque has set up like gambling dens and has already moved up from one town to another and is planning to move up to an even larger town. He's been ordered to go kill a rival, an interloper that popped up named Gavashaw. And so when he goes to Gavashaw's place, and during that time, um, I'll get to it, but he shows up. Gavashaw is dead already, and so he decides to do this without harming as many people as he can, because he wasn't given explicits. And when he has the option, he doesn't want to kill anybody he doesn't have to. There's a masked man there, and he reveals that he also killed Macaque, and he has his oath stone. So he has a new master now, and is given a list of names for Seth to kill, which includes 6 high princes, Asile Garantark, whatever the hell that is, and the king of Yakaved. And so, yeah, during this time when he goes, we're talking about Shin and not stepping on stone, like you mentioned. The dome that he cuts into, it says it was made of stone, and then he's landed on it. I was like, well, you just said he couldn't step on stone, but then he lands on the stone dome.
Yeah. Well, he does it still. I think is it this chapter, one of the ones where he's like, it doesn't bother me anymore that I walk on stone. But
That's another little tidbit that like doesn't matter much, I don't think, in the plot, but it's easily skipped over, but interesting if when you do catch it.
yeah. He also refers to Shinovar as the Valley of Truth. So whatever that means. And he's truthless, so
Yeah, I picked up on that too. Valley of Truth. There are 2 things, uh, 2 forbidden actions that he has as well. Is one, he can't take his own life. 2, he cannot give up his shard blade, even if forced to do it. Like he can't do it.
yeah. It's the 2 laws of Shin. 2 laws of the truthless.
2 laws of the truthless.
Yeah.
What the hell is a truthless?
They got some Asimov in here. I hope the thing that kind of sucks, and like we'll probably get to it later, but like the Shin are on the opposite side of the planet as the Alethi. So I'm like, man, it'll be so long before we get to Shinovar. It seems so interesting and cool. Hopefully we'll get some more interludes in this book and other books about the Shin.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, because yeah, truthless.
I always think of Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon too.
So the 6 high princes are supposed to kill it. You think the Alethi are the only ones that are high? Probably the Alethi are the only ones that have high princes. So
I assume it's High Princess, the Lethe High Princess.
that'd be half of the high princes at the Shattered Plains, which is pretty crazy.
Yes. And what the hell is a Garantark?
Sile Garanton.
Is that a made up word?
I would assume so.
I mean, Google Docs says this word is potentially misspelled. Thanks.
I mean, I assume it's the leader of Soleil, or a
Some type, yeah.
yeah, or like a right lord of. Where's Soleil? There's the Sealay Tails. I guess it's over here. It's like over here.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot to go to. Got a lot of dudes to kill. So yeah, I mean, it's a cool chapter. It's basically like, oh, now Seth is gonna, or say that, however you say his name, he's gonna actually start doing stuff for the plot. They're like
Well,
so,
I mean, he already did something.
Yeah.
For the plot.
yeah, but like, non-prologue related stuff.
Yes.
I will say this book is, I really like this book, but it's kind of funny when thinking about it. This book feels like it's a prologue to another book. And it's not like a terrible thing. It's just kind of how, because it's like a lot of setup, and we're gonna get more setup and more setup. And for the listeners, stuff does happen in the book. Like there's a lot of cool stuff in it, especially towards the end. But a lot of it is like a lot of it is world building and character building, which I really enjoy because I really like world building and character building. But also talking about it, you're like, yeah, they like had a conversation. That was a chapter. Like not much plot happens. And
But when it does happen, it's gonna be crazy.
yeah, it's really cool. But it's just kind of funny thinking about it because yeah, it's a lot of it's just like world building and a lot of world building, and then world building for other stuff that may not appear for books. So you're like, oh yeah, that stuff's really cool, and then like, oh, so it's like a lot of world building, a lot of character building, especially with the Kaladin stuff. And it's really good. I really enjoy it, but it's kind of a different type of book.
I really want to see more of Axes the Collector.
I do too. He seems really interesting. I guess he's not in the Trust of the Emerald Sea or any of that other stuff, huh? He needs a secret novel. Come on, Brandon.
Yes.
Go on another vacation.
Brandon, write us a novel about Axes the Collector.
Yeah. I mean, the trader lady was also cool. Like, I read a little novella about going around Roshar trading, going to all these different places.
Well, what's funny is Edge Dancer is a novella that came off of a character from a interlude.
Yeah.
And I think Dawn Shard too.
I don't know. I haven't read Dawn Shard.
Yeah. So
who's that about?
I don't remember, but I mean the cover is those little creatures that are like cat-like. Because like this is little cat-like dragons.
Okay. That's cool.
And yeah, I mean, so the Chiri is the name. Wait, this back of this says Risen.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
I guess she's important. Have you read that one yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, we're reading it though, right?
Yes, we are going to read it between books 3 and 4.
Cool.
So we're going to read Edge Dancer between 2 and 3, and Dawn Shard between 3 and 4.
I have Edge Dancer. I think I have it on the Kindle.
Yeah, that one's fun. I don't remember the plot of it.
I don't remember the plot of it. I like the lady. I forget her name, but we'll meet her
Lift.
next book. Yeah, Lift. We'll meet her next book.
Yeah, we will meet her next book. All right. Any last thoughts on this section?
No, it was fun. I like meeting Dalinar and Adolin, expanding the world with some high princes. I thought it was a good section. Kaladin stuff was a bit not boring, just kind of inaction. It's kind of just like meeting people, character growth, which is fun. But I think the next sections will be a little bit more action heavy. Probably not too much because this book isn't crazy with action, which is good.
It's things are building.
Yeah, it's all build up.
It's
Yeah.
going to be a Sander Lanch. So,
It always is.
all right. So, yes, next week we're going to be covering part 3. And so we're actually changing some things up. We're going to be doing part 4 and part 5 together. In not Yeah, so next week is going to be part 3. Then we're going to have a week where we don't talk about the book. I'll have to figure out if I'm going to release anything for that week. Then the following week, we're just going to cover parts 4 and 5 together, since 5 is only 40 pages. We originally were going to have that its own week, but due to events that you and I are going to that are separate, we're not going to be able to record 2 weeks from now. So that would be something different, or just a week off. And then the following week, we're going to finish the book.
Yeah.
So go ahead and like, subscribe, share, do all those things. Visit our sponsor, Mudcat Whiskers. And we will see y'all next week.
Bye.